Good morning, students. Welcome to our morning classes. And today we have just completed our 80th, 80th Independence Day celebration yesterday. And I'm sure you all would be carrying that strong vibes with you today also. And I always believe, students, that education is the biggest source of liberation. It liberates your mind from all sorts of darkness, where the darkness represents the lack of knowledge. Plus, education also empowers you to be the next future of your country, of your society, of your family. And also, education and courses like ours are the one which are key to nation building. Hence, I believe that when we celebrate Independence Day, or later on we'll be celebrating Republic Day, I believe education and courses like ours are the true mechanism, tools to be free, to be independent, and also to be a value adding resource for the country. With this, students, let me start our today's session. So I'll complete firstly in first 15 minutes some provisions relating to interstate, intrastate supplies, because they are the one which are part of your place of supply chapter. And then we will proceed with the next fresh topic for today, which is the topic on exemption, which is again very interesting, which is again very thought-provoking. It will be giving you new perspectives of many concepts. It will give you new thought processes. You'll get to know so many things relating to real practical business. So with this, let me start. Once again, very good morning to all of you all who are present and also who are watching us later on through the YouTube. So students, when we determine place of supply, one of the major purposes of determining place of supply is determining the nature of supply. That is, whether the supply is interstate or intrastate. And the obvious purpose is that until unless we determine whether the supply is interstate or intrastate, we cannot determine the other factors like which tax has to be levied, rather which whole act applies to you, whether CGST will apply or IGST will apply. That will depend upon firstly the nature of supply, whether it is interstate, intrastate, plus which exemption notification to refer, whether of central tax or of integrated tax. All these things are directly dependent upon the nature of supply. Now, as we all know that there are two types of supplies as per the law, interstate and intrastate. Interstate has been defined in section 7. We are studying the IGST Act, students, keep this in mind. So section 7 determines what is interstate supply. Now what it says, subject to provisions of section 10. So section 10 was what? Domestic transactions of goods for which we determine place of supply. It was determined through section 10. So what it says, subject to provisions of section 10, supply of goods where the location of supplier and the place of supply are in different states, different union territories, or one is in a state, another is in a union territory, they will be treated as supply in the course of interstate. So this we already know that when there are two different states involved, so location of supplier falls in one state, but the place of supply in another state, it will become interstate. Next, in case of import of goods, Most interesting part is this. Till they cross the custom frontiers of India, whatever supply is happening, it will be treated to be supply in the course of interstate trade. So for imported goods, the law says you need not see everything. Simply, it will always be an interstate supply. Then comes the second part, which says subject to provisions of Section 12. What was Section 12? Place of supply for domestic services. What it says again, location of supplier, place of supply are in different states, different union territories, or where one is a state and one is another union territory. It will again be treated as supply in the course of interstate trade. Next, again over here, for imported services which are imported into India, it will again be treated to be supply in the course of interstate trade. Correct? So for goods, for service, both, they have clarified this. Now coming to an important point. Subsection 5. What is subsection 5 do? Subsection 5 is authoritatively putting three transactions in interstate supply irrespective of whatever you have studied above. So what it says, it may be supply of goods or supply of service where supplier is located in India and place of supply is outside India. Second, where the supply is to SEZ developer or unit or supply is by SEZ developer or unit. Very important. So if you are supplying to a SEZ unit, maybe the SEZ unit is in your own state. So supplier is also Karnataka and the SEZ unit is also in Karnataka. Still, it will always be treated as interstate. And then where the supply of goods or services is in India, that is taxable territory, but it is not becoming an intrastate supply. So the intrastate supply, which we are going to study in the next section, your transaction is not falling in it. And also, it is not covered anywhere else in this section. So this point is like the residuary section of the whole concept of inter and intrastate, where it says your supply is not intrastate. Also, it is not covered anywhere else. All these will always be treated as supply in the course of interstate trade or commerce. So this is important, students, that wherever the supply is happening in these three situations, where supplier inside, place of supply outside, second, to SEZ or by SEZ, and third, where it is not an intrastate or not covered in any other provision, in all these three cases, it will always be treated as interstate or in the course of interstate. Now coming to the definition of intrastate supplies, which is by section 8 again of the IGST Act. Further again it says subject to provisions of section 10, which is determining place of supply in case of domestic transactions, where location of supplier and the place of supply are in the same state or in the same union territory. It will be treated as intrastate supply. However, again, they have carved out the exceptions where it says following supplies will not be treated as intrastate. First, supply of goods to or by SEZ developer or unit. Second, goods imported into India until they cross the custom frontiers of India. And interestingly, supplies made to a foreign tourist who is covered in section 15. So interestingly, when a foreign tourist is in India and the foreign tourist goes to any shop and purchase any goods, it will always be treated as interstate supply. It will not be intrastate supply. It means this is overriding all the other provisions. So again, for these three supplies, they are saying it will always be interstate, even though happening within the same state. Similarly, for services subject to Section 12, which is place of supply for services, what it says, location of supplier, place of supply are in same state or union territory, it will be intrastate. Again, exception, what it says, intrastate supply of services will not include supply of services to or by SEZ developer unit. So whenever SEZ is doing a supply or you are doing a supply to SEZ, in both cases, it will be interstate. Then they have put explanation. So for the purposes of this act, where a person has an establishment in India and another establishment outside India, then such establishment shall be treated as establishment of different persons. So what it means, you have one office in India and one is outside India, even though both are your offices, but for the purpose of this act, we will be treating these offices as if they are of distinct persons. Similarly, where establishment is in a state or union territory, and again you have another establishment outside that state. So in short, you have one office is in Mumbai, Maharashtra, another office is in Bangalore, Karnataka. Again, both these offices will be treated as offices of distinct persons. So when they are in different countries, when they are in different states. Next, establishment in one state and another establishment registered within that state. Now, this is interesting. So, now you have establishment in the same state, two establishments, but one is registered, one is not registered. In such cases also, the establishments will be treated as distinct persons. So what they are trying to make out, students, is if you have different offices, either in same place or in different places, or within the same state, but one is registered, one is not registered. In all these cases, we will treat these offices as distinct persons. Now you'll say, sir, what is the impact of this? So students, impact is Schedule 1. So when you study Schedule 1, you have seen that transactions between two entities where they are distinct persons is deemed to be a supply even if it is without consideration. So this point is going to affect that particular provision. Second explanation of this section says a person carrying on business through a branch or an agency or a representation office in the territory that is in India shall be treated as having an establishment in that territory. So wherever you are having an office, it may be office of yours, or it may be your branch, or it may be your representation office. It will be treated as if that is your establishment of that territory. And then comes the last provision, students. Very interesting, section 9. Now, this deals with supplies which are happening in territorial waters. Now, what is this? I'm sure you all would be knowing. Now, see, this is our southern part of India. And here you have the northeastern states. Here you have Gujarat. Here you have Mumbai, Goa, all those places. Now, you know that all these sides of India are covered by water, right? And you all know that up to 12 nautical miles in the sea, it is our own territory because from the baseline up to 12 nautical miles in the sea, we treat it as territorial waters. That is, it is treated as our own territory. It is Indian territory. Now, till now, whenever we were studying place of supply, we were always assuming in our mind a land portion. So when we are saying something is happening in one state, something is happening in another state, we are visualizing land. Now, what if your business place, what if your establishment is in waters anywhere? And which waters? territorial waters, the 12 nautical miles place. Now, firstly, students, I want to ask you all, do you all know any such establishment which is in waters? Because if you all don't know, then it will be only a theoretical example for you. So now you have an establishment, a place from where you are doing business, and that is in waters. Gurram says no. Okay. Anybody else? Do you know that when we are extracting oil and the oil is in the seabed, we have a floating, now what should I call it as? Something like a small floating island type of a thing, which is within the sea. As you can understand when I'm saying floating an island, it is not an island, it is an artificial structure created. Like one of our ONGC plants are in water. Plus, nowadays, many of these shipping companies who catch fish and from the fish they derive various products like fish oil and all those things. So they have again set up an floating factory within the waters so that they can catch the fish, and that particular fish which is still live and fresh, there itself they can extract the elements out of it. You have such establishments, such places which are like small floating islands artificially created, and there itself you have the ONGC plant where the crude oil which is extracted is processed, or the fishes which are catched are undergoing some process. Such places are your establishments in water. And this water now we are talking about is the territorial water that is within 12 nautical miles. Yes, correct, Radha. Bhed Dwarka for salt production. You're right. Now, what is addressed in section 9 is, now this is your business place, the ONGC plant, or this is your fish manufacturing unit. All these are in waters. Now, when someone will supplying to you or you are supplying to someone, the question is, what we have studied till now is that section 7 says one is in India, one is outside India. Section 8 says, sorry, not India, state. Section 8 says both are in the same state. Now the question is, when transaction is happening between someone who is in land and someone who is in water, or maybe two units both which are in water. Now when anything which is in water and it is also your establishment, how will I look at it? Because I need to determine it is in which state. That is the main point. So when you have establishments which are floating in water, they would be part of which state? That is what is the discussion point in section 9. So what it says, notwithstanding anything contained in this act, where the location of supplier or the place of supply, anything is falling in the territorial waters, then for the purposes of this act, it will be deemed to be in a coastal state. Which state? The state or union territory which is nearest to your floating establishment. So, if your floating establishment is nearest to Gujarat as compared to Maharashtra, you will be said to be in Gujarat. If your floating location is in Mumbai or around Mumbai, it will be nearest to Maharashtra. So it will be treated as if you are in Maharashtra. So while determining all these provisions of place of supply, wherever we have to find out where the location of supplier is or where the place of supply is, and it is falling in territorial waters, we will treat it to be part of that state, which is the nearest point to the baseline. I hope students this is understood by all, and I'm sure this was a new value addition to you. See, that is what is the beauty of our subject, that our subject will be covering so many practical aspects that it will give you good GK knowledge also, which may otherwise not have come to you from your regular studies. So students, with this, we have completed the left out portion of place of supply. Now, let me go to the next topic. Now, before I start, let me take up your queries, if any. So if any of y'all have any queries, any doubts with any of the previous chapters, any of the provisions, you can ask me.
हेलो।
Yes.
मॉर्निंग सर।
Good morning, beta. Tell me.
सर लास्ट जो लास्ट सेशन हुआ था उसमें 10(1)(e जो था, इसमें
हम्म,
गुड्स को हम ट्रेन या फ्लाइट में बोर्ड करते हैं।
किसमें करते हैं?
उसके बाद ट्रेन या मतलब फ्लाइट में मतलब उसको रखते हैं गुड्स को, और मेन ऑयल हम सेल करते हैं।
10(1)(e).
हाँ, 10(1)(e)
हम्म
IGST एक्ट। तो सपोज दैट ट्रेन जा रही है बैंगलोर टू कानपुर या फिर दिल्ली वाया मतलब बॉम्बे,
हम्म
और हम जो कि बोर्ड करते हैं बॉम्बे से।
हम्म
बट जो गुड्स है वो तो बैंगलोर से ही ट्रेन में रख दिया गया था, और हम उसके बाद अगर हम खरीदारी वहां करते हैं ट्रेन में,
हम्म
तो उसका प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई बॉम्बे रहेगा आपने बोला था, लेकिन मैं ऑनलाइन सर्च
नहीं
किया
बेटा,
और
मैंने
एक
बॉम्बे
एक
बोला ही
लोगों।
नहीं है। मैंने बॉम्बे बोला ही नहीं है।
आप
इट इज
सर
द प्लेस
सर
ऑफ
आपने।
सप्लाई वेयर गुड्स आर टेकन ऑन बोर्ड।
ओके, लेकिन आपने उस दिन बोला था वहां पे लिखा था सच, सॉरी, दिस जर्नी, दिस
तो
जर्नी
बेटा,
के चक्कर
यू
में
आर यू
आपने
आर
वो बोला
मिक्सिंग
था।
यू आर मिक्सिंग वी वर डिस्कसिंग एट दैट टाइम place of
हम्म,
supply for services consumed on board. We were not
राइट
discussing goods. Goods हमारा फर्स्ट सेशन में
सर।
हुआ। पिछले
ओके
सेशन
सर,
में जो
लेकिन
हुआ था वो
हाँ,
था
राइट,
सर्विस।
करेक्ट सर। हाँ, 12-10 में मैंने भी जाकर के वहां पे गुड्स और सर्विस दोनों का मतलब एनालिसिस किया। दोनों में
हम्म
सेम कंडीशन है कि जहां पर आप उसका बोर्ड होता है फर्स्ट टाइम, फर्स्ट फर्स्ट शेड्यूल पॉइंट ऑफ डिपार्चर, वो उसका प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई रहेगा, तो चाहे
करेक्ट
गुड्स हो
बेटा।
या
बट
सर्विस हो।
आप बट आप एक चीज मिस कर रहे हो। जब
क्या
मैंने ये
चीज है?
पिछले सेशन में एक्सप्लेन किया था फॉर सर्विस, करेक्ट?
हम्म,
सेक्शन 12 तो सर्विस का है।
राइट।
उस वक्त मैंने आपको एग्जांपल क्या दिया था? फ्लाइट सुबह स्टार्ट हुई कोलकाता से।
हम्म,
कोलकाता से उसका पहला फ्लाइट क्या था? कोलकाता टू दिल्ली।
हम्म,
अब आपने फ्लाइट के केस में देखा रहेगा, फ्लाइट क्योंकि 1.5-2 घंटे में पहुंच जाती है, तो फ्लाइट
बिल्कुल।
एक दिन में मल्टीपल जर्नीज करती है। क्या ये सही है?
हम्म, सही बात है।
मतलब अगर फ्लाइट जिसका जो भी नंबर रहेगा, समझो उसको नंबर दिया रहेगा AE424, ये जब
हम्म,
कोलकाता से उड़ी और उसका फ्लाइट का डेस्टिनेशन था दिल्ली। अब
हम्म,
एयरक्राफ्ट वही है। अब
हम्म,
मगर वो दिल्ली से जाने वाला है बॉम्बे। उसका
हम्म।
नंबर AE424 नहीं रहता, उसको अब नया नंबर मिलता है AE428। बराबर?
नहीं सर, समटाइम्स सेम फ्लाइट जाती है क्योंकि
तो
मैंने
बेटा
जर्नी की
सुनो
है।
मेरी बात,
हाँ,
बेटा आप मेरी बात कंप्लीट होने नहीं देते कभी भी।
जी, जी, जी।
बेटा देयर इज अ डिफरेंस। वन इज द फ्लाइट इज गोइंग फ्रॉम बॉम्बे टू दिल्ली, दिस इज द
हम्म,
फ्लाइट। सेकेंड
हम्म,
इज द फ्लाइट इज गोइंग फ्रॉम, sorry, the flight is going from Kolkata to Delhi, this is the flight. Second possibility is the flight is going from Kolkata to Bombay with
हम्म,
one stopover at Delhi.
हम्म,
दोनों में का डिफरेंस समझा आपको?
जी। वन
पहला
केस
वाला
में सेम
एग्जांपल
फ्लाइट जा
में,
रही है।
सॉरी,
हाँ, वन वन केस में अनदर फ्लाइट चेंज हो रही है फर्स्ट, और जो सेकंड केस है सेम फ्लाइट जा रही है स्टॉप
नहीं
के
बेटा,
बाद।
आप फ्लाइट का मतलब क्या समझ रहे हो? आप एयरक्राफ्ट बोल रहे हो, फ्लाइट का मतलब पहले
हाँ, एयर का
क्लियर है।
पैसेंजर, हाँ,
ठीक है,
पैसेंजर एयर बस।
नहीं, हाँ, तो मैं पैसेंजर एयरबस सेम है मेरे दोनों एग्जांपल में, यही मैं आपको फर्क समझा रहा हूँ।
हम्म,
पहला मेरा एग्जांपल क्या है? आपका वो
हम्म,
जो भी एयर इंडिया का वो एयरक्राफ्ट है, मैं उसको एयरक्राफ्ट बोल रहा हूँ, बराबर? आप एयरबस बोल रहे हो शायद, ठीक है।
ओके, हाँ,
उसका पहला फ्लाइट था कोलकाता से दिल्ली,
ओके,
जिसको नंबर दिया था उन्होंने AE424। ठीक है।
हम्म, हम्म,
वहां पे वो फ्लाइट खत्म हो गई। खत्म हो गई मतलब
हम्म,
उनका वो वाला शेड्यूल खत्म हो गया। और
खत्म
वो
हो गया।
फ्लाइट तो अभी खड़ी है दिल्ली एयरपोर्ट पे।
हम्म,
अब उसी एयरबस को, उसी एयरक्राफ्ट को दूसरी
हम्म,
फ्लाइट बनाया, जो कि
हम्म,
है दिल्ली से बॉम्बे, जिसका नंबर
हम्म,
दिया 428। ठीक है।
हम्म,
ये हो
हम्म,
गया पहला एग्जाम्पल, पहला पॉसिबिलिटी। अब इस केस में
हम्म,
मैं बोलूंगा ये दो फ्लाइट है, ये दो जर्नी है। ठीक है।
हम्म, हम्म,
सेकेंड पॉसिबिलिटी, ये फ्लाइट जब कोलकाता से उड़ा, तो आप
हम्म,
वहीं से बैठे ये बोल के कि मुझे जाना है बॉम्बे, और ये फ्लाइट
हम्म,
भी कोलकाता टू बॉम्बे है वाया दिल्ली।
हम्म।
मतलब क्या, इस फ्लाइट का जो जर्नी
हम्म।
है वो कोलकाता
हम्म।
टू बॉम्बे है और उसका नंबर रहेगा AE424। मगर ये फ्लाइट उड़ते वक्त जाएगी कैसे, वो पहले दिल्ली लैंड करेगी, कुछ
हम्म।
पैसेंजर्स उसमें से उतर जाएंगे, कुछ पैसेंजर्स
हम्म।
बैठे रहेंगे, कुछ और
हम्म।
पैसेंजर्स ऐड होंगे, और फिर वो फ्लाइट वहां
राइट।
से आगे कंटिन्यू करेगी मुंबई।
राइट।
अब इस केस में ये पूरा एक ही फ्लाइट माना जाएगा, फ्रॉम कोलकाता टू मुंबई विथ ले ओवर एट दिल्ली।
राइट।
आपको फर्क समझा?
जी सर।
ये पूरा एक
तो सर
जर्नी,
जो
बेटा बेटा
जो
वन सेकेंड,
मतलब।
वन सेकेंड,
जी जी।
वन सेकेंड, ये पूरा एक जर्नी हुआ,
हम्म।
जबकि पहले वाले एग्जाम्पल में दो जर्नीज है।
हम्म।
जब फ्लाइट नंबर चेंज हो जाता है तो इन दी आईज ऑफ एयरलाइंस इट इज टू सेपरेट जर्नी।
राइट।
अब अगर आपको ये डिफरेंस समझा है, अब आप वो प्रोविजन का लैंग्वेज पढ़ो। वो बोलते हैं फर्स्ट बोर्डिंग पॉइंट ऑफ दैट जर्नी।
हम्म।
तो उस केस में फर्स्ट एग्जाम्पल में दो बोर्डिंग पॉइंट्स हो, दो स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट्स हो जाएंगे क्योंकि दो जर्नी है। सेकेंड
राइट सर।
एग्जाम्पल में एक ही स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट रहेगा क्योंकि एक ही जर्नी है।
जी।
ट्रेन और फ्लाइट में एक बहुत बड़ा फर्क है बेटा। ट्रेन में भी पूरे दिन में या 2 दिन मिला के एक जर्नी करती है,
हम्म।
क्योंकि वो ट्रेन चली है समझो बैंगलोर से, वो चार अलग अलग स्टेट होते हुए पहुंचेगी दिल्ली, मगर एंटायर थिंग इज वन जर्नी, क्योंकि कहीं पे उसका जर्नी खत्म नहीं हो रहा है।
हम्म।
तो हम यही बोलेंगे ट्रेन कहाँ से कहाँ जा रही है, जा रही है बैंगलोर से दिल्ली। मगर वो पास कैसे होगी भाई, वो कर्नाटका से निकलेगी, महाराष्ट्र में घुसेगी समझो, गुजरात से राजस्थान होते समझो दिल्ली जाएगी, एग्जाम्पल।
हम्म।
बट वो पूरी एक जर्नी है। और गुड्स के केस में, गुड्स किस
हम्म।
स्टेशन पे बोर्ड किए हैं, दैट स्टेशन इज द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई, नॉट द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट। सर्विस के
ओके।
केस में द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ऑफ दैट जर्नी इज द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई।
ओके। वो गुड्स के केस में जहाँ पे गुड्स मतलब कन्वेंस में लोड हुए हैं वहां पर।
हम्म,
और
इसीलिए
मैं ट्रेन
प्रोविजन
के
है।
केस। हाँ, ट्रेन के केस में मैं यही बोलना चाहता हूँ कि मान मान लीजिए वो 4 दिन लेती है तो उसका इंजन भी तो चेंज हो जाता है बीच बीच में। सपोज दैट पहले इलेक्ट्रिक इंजन था, फिर डीजल इंजन हुआ, फिर इलेक्ट्रिक हुआ,
तो
तो
बेटा
आपका
उससे क्या
इंजन नंबर
फर्क
तो
पड़ा, उससे फर्क कुछ नहीं पड़ा। अगर आप गुड्स की बात कर रहे हो तो इट इज द प्लेस वेयर द गुड्स आर बोर्डेड, और अगर आप
हम्म।
सर्विस की बात कर रहे हो तो आपको देखना है फर्स्ट शेड्यूल्ड पॉइंट ऑफ स्टार्टिंग ऑफ दैट जर्नी। ट्रेन की
ओके।
जर्नी, इसी मैं वापस बोल रहा हूँ। हम बोलते हैं भाई मैं जा रहा हूँ बैंगलोर से दिल्ली, मेरे को 2 दिन लगेंगे ट्रेन से, हम ऐसा ही बोलते हैं ना।
राइट सर।
अब वो बीच में ट्रेन का इंजन चेंज हो या ट्रेन की कुछ बोगियां चेंज हो, मेरे लिए तो वो एक जर्नी है या 10 जर्नी है।
एक ही जर्नी।
तो दैट इज द पॉइंट, आपको ये देखना है कि जो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है उसने इसको एक जर्नी ट्रीट किया है या अलग अलग जर्नी ट्रीट किया है। आर यू गेटिंग द
ओके।
डिफरेंस?
यस सर।
तो डोंट मिक्स बेटा, बी क्लियर। जर्नी क्या है, जर्नी इज उस पर्टिकुलर ट्रेन का जो स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट और एंड पॉइंट है, उस ट्रेन का मतलब वो एक जो बोलते हैं ना अपन, ये ट्रेन बैंगलोर टू दिल्ली की है।
जी।
जब तक वो दिल्ली नहीं पहुंचेगी तब तक उसका जर्नी कंटिन्यूड है, बीच में भले वो 50 स्टेशन में रुके, बीच में वो 4 स्टेट्स को क्रॉस करे और बीच में भले उसका इंजन चेंज हो जाए, मगर
हम्म।
इट इज वन जर्नी।
ओके सर।
इन दैट केस इट विल ऑलवेज बी द फर्स्ट स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ऑफ द ट्रेन। आपने पूरे ट्रेन के 2 दिन में कहीं पे भी कंज्यूम की हो सर्विस, द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ऑफ द ट्रेन बिकम्स द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस।
सर दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये था, मान लीजिए मैंने रेगुलर मतलब स्कीम में वो लिया, रजिस्ट्रेशन लिया, लेकिन जो मैं सप्लाई करता हूँ वो एग्जेम्प्टेड गुड्स है, लाइक फ्लोर है।
करेक्ट। हम्म।
तो उसमें जो फ्रेट लगता है उस पर भी टैक्स नहीं लगेगा? मान लीजिए मैंने किसी कन्वेंस से मटेरियल को जो कि एंड कंज्यूमर के पास या डीलर के पास पहुंचाया, जो फ्रेट चार्ज किया उस पर नहीं लगा?
आंसर इज नो। और ये आंसर आपको आज या कल में मिल जाएगा जब हम फ्रेट का यानी ट्रांसपोर्ट ऑफ गुड्स का एग्जम्पशन पढ़ेंगे, क्योंकि आज हम वही शुरू करने वाले हैं। तो जब हम
ठीक है
एग्जम्पशन
सर।
पढ़ेंगे तो इन एग्जम्पशन यू विल गेट द आंसर, बट मैंने आपको आंसर दे दिया, आंसर इज नो। आपके गुड्स एग्जम्प्ट है तो उसका ट्रांसपोर्टेशन अपने आप एग्जम्प्ट रहेगा, ऐसा कोई रूल नहीं है। एग्जम्पशन में यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है कि स्पेसिफिकली कौन से गुड्स का ट्रांसपोर्ट एग्जम्प्ट है। अब वो गुड्स टैक्सेबल भी हो तो भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, वो गुड्स एग्जम्प्ट हो तो भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है।
ओके। और
सो
और इसी इसी से रिलेटेड एक क्वेश्चन था, ये था कि जो इनवर्ड सप्लाई हमारी रहेगी, मान लीजिए मेरा मेरा जो मिल है उसमें मैंने कुछ रिपेयर करवाया है, फिर कुछ सामान मंगाया, तो उसमें जो इनवर्ट सप्लाई तो हमारी टैक्सेबल है, तो उस पे आरटीएम लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा?
सी व्हेन योर सप्लाई इज टैक्सेबल, नहीं तो
हम्म।
इसमें डाउट क्यों है? अगर आप बोल रहे हो सप्लाई टैक्सेबल है तो आरसीएम लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा, ये सवाल क्यों है?
इनवर्ड में सर, आउटवर्ड में तो कंफर्म है कि नहीं लगेगा, इनवर्ड में
नहीं नहीं
मटेरियल
बेटा, एक
परचेज
मिनट
कर रहे
एक
हैं।
मिनट एक मिनट एक मिनट।
हम्म।
आई एम नॉट गेटिंग
हम्म।
योर क्वेश्चन।
हम्म।
You are again talking about transport service only, or you are talking about any other service?
ट्रांसपोर्ट सर, सेम सेम क्वेश्चन है। फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन था मेरा आउटवर्ड सप्लाई से रिलेटेड, सेकंड क्वेश्चन है इनवर्ड सप्लाई रिलेटेड, सप्लाई
बेटा
से
अगेन
रिलेटेड।
वापस मैं बोलूंगा, यू आर मिक्सिंग टू थिंग्स। आप शायद जो वस्तु ला रहे हो, लेट अस से, अभी आपने
हम्म।
क्या एग्जांपल लिया, फ्लावर। आप
हाँ
फ्लावर,
फ्लोर, हाँ फ्लोर। फ्लोर
आपका
मेरा
जो फ्लावर,
आउटपुट है सर, फ्लोर मेरा आउटपुट प्रोडक्ट है।
करेक्ट
इनवर्ड
बेटा,
मेरा
तो
मान
अभी
लीजिए
इनवर्ड में आप क्या ला रहे हो?
मशीनरी।
मशीनरी। तो पहली बात, आप ट्रांसपोर्ट सर्विस के टैक्सेबिलिटी और एग्जाम्पशन की बात करो या मशीनरी के?
ट्रांसपोर्ट के।
ट्रांसपोर्ट के, राइट। तो हमने
राइट।
ऑलरेडी चार्ज ऑफ जीएसटी वाले चैप्टर में पढ़ लिया था कि ट्रांसपोर्ट वाला सर्विस, जिसको हम जीटीए बोलते हैं, इसमें
हम्म।
दो ऑप्शन दिए हैं, फॉरवर्ड और रिवर्स।
हम्म।
ये ऑप्शन किसको डिसाइड करना है? ट्रांसपोर्टर को।
ट्रांसपोर्ट को।
अब ट्रांसपोर्टर ने अगर फॉरवर्ड का ऑप्शन ले लिया तो टैक्स वही भरेगा। फिर आपने
हम्म।
मशीनरी लाई, उससे जिससे ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सर्विस ली, आपको कोई उसका जीएसटी नहीं भरना है रिवर्स चार्ज में। पर अगर
राइट सर।
ट्रांसपोर्टर ने ऑप्शन लिया है रिवर्स का, तो वो केवल
हम्म।
आपको बिल देगा, उसमें वो जीएसटी नहीं चार्ज करेगा, आपसे कलेक्ट नहीं
राइट।
करेगा, क्योंकि उसने खुद ने रिवर्स का ऑप्शन लिया है। तो उस केस में
हम्म।
आपको उसका टैक्स
हम्म।
रिवर्स में भरना पड़ेगा।
तो वो कॉस्ट हो जाएगी सर ना कंपनी के लिए?
तो इट इज अ कॉस्ट ऑलवेज एनीवेज। जहां पे भी आपका आउटवर्ड सप्लाई एग्जम्प्ट है और इनवर्ड सप्लाई
हम्म।
टैक्सेबल है, तो हमेशा कॉस्ट है। तो उसमें नया क्या है यहाँ पे? उससे फॉरवर्ड और रिवर्स से क्या फर्क पड़ा?
अच्छा सर,
हाउ
एक
इज इट
क्वेश्चन और
डिफरेंट इन
था।
फॉरवर्ड एंड रिवर्स?
सर एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन था।
हम्म।
सपोज दैट मतलब फैक्ट्री में कोई ड्राइवर गाड़ी लेकर के आया और वेब्रिज को तोड़ दिया, ठीक है?
हम्म।
तो उसका पेनाल्टी हमने उससे चार्ज किया और उसको मिसलेनियस रिसिप्ट में दिखा दिया, बाद में हमने उसको
हम्म।
रिपेयर करवाया, जो भी कॉस्ट है कंपनी अकाउंट से पे हुआ।
हम्म।
तो जो वो रिसिप्ट है उस पे भी टैक्स देना पड़ेगा क्या हम फैक्ट्री को?
जी बेटा, वापस
हम्म।
आपको ये देखना है कि क्या कोई सप्लाई हुआ है इधर। अब कोई
सप्लाई तो
ड्राइवर
नहीं
आया,
हुआ।
उसने ध्यान से नहीं देखा, उसने आपके इधर कुछ डैमेज कर दिया, आपके किसी भी प्रॉपर्टी या
हम्म।
असेट को, राइट। आप
हम्म।
उससे डैमेज रिकवर कर रहे हो।
हम्म।
वेदर रिकवरी ऑफ दिस डैमेज फ्रॉम द ड्राइवर becomes
हम्म।
an independent supply.
नो।
If the answer is no, there should be no
हम्म।
GST. Correct?
हम्म।
That is what we have to analyze कि जब किसी से आपकी कोई चीज डैमेज होती है तो उसे क्या माना जाता है। मेरा इसमें आंसर, आई बिलीव दिस इज अ सप्लाई।
सप्लाई
It is
कैसे
like
सर?
this कि I have sold that item to that driver and he is paying me for that item.
बट सर हमने तो उसको मतलब सोल्ड किया ही नहीं, वो तो तोड़ दिया।
तो
और
बेटा
जो
आपने
डैमेज,
शायद इसका मतलब
वो
आपने सप्लाई
स्क्रैप,
का डेफिनेशन पूरा ध्यान से नहीं देखा है। सप्लाई में क्या केवल सेल है?
सेल, बार्टर, एक्सचेंज, लाइसेंस,
आगे?
लीज, रेंटल एंड डिस्पोजल।
हाँ, तो
क्लोज सेवन।
डिस्पोजल क्या होता है? व्हाट इज डिस्पोजल?
बट डिस्पोजल आई एम नॉट गिविंग द गुड्स, गुड्स तो रिमेन फैक्ट्री के पास ही है, वो तोड़
बेटा
दिया सिर्फ
फैक्ट्री
बस।
के पास भी नहीं है, वो गुड्स खत्म हो गए डैमेज की वजह से।
हाँ हाँ खत्म हो गया, लेकिन मैंने उसको बाद में स्क्रैप में सेल किया ना, कंपनी ने स्क्रैप में सेल किया ना उसको।
एग्जैक्टली exactly बेटा, पर जो 100 रुपए का था वो अभी आपका कचरा बन के 2 रुपए में बिक रहा है। अगर
हाँ,
वो 100 रुपए का 100 रुपए में स्क्रैप बिकना है तो आप उससे किस चीज के पैसे लोगे, या वो क्यों आपको पैसे देगा?
उसको ताकि उसको पेनलाइज करेंगे कि नेक्स्ट टाइम ध्यान रखेगा।
एग्जैक्टली exactly. तो बस यही पॉइंट है, इसलिए मैंने आपको कंडीशनल आंसर दिया है। इसमें जैसे जैसे आपके केस के फैक्ट्स चेंज होंगे, द आंसर विल चेंज। अगर आप बोल रहे हो मैंने उसको एज अ पेनल्टी सिर्फ लगाया है ताकि वो ध्यान से करे, मेरे गुड्स को ऐसा कोई मेजर डैमेज नहीं हो, मगर मैंने उसको एज अ पेनल्टी लगाया है, देन द आंसर विल चेंज, देयर इज नो सप्लाई। पर जहां पे आप बोलते हो कि यार ये देखो तुम्हारे एक्सीडेंट की वजह से मेरे पूरे गुड्स खराब हो गए, अब ये तुम देखो तुमको इसको क्या करना है, मुझे मेरे गुड्स के पैसे दे दो, then it is as if you have supplied the goods to that person and then there will be a GST। तो यही मैं बोल रहा हूँ, हर एक केस में आपको फैक्ट्स थोड़े भी चेंज करोगे तो देर मे बी अ डिफरेंट आंसर। इसलिए मैंने इस क्वेश्चन का आपका आंसर कंडीशनल दिया, बाकी पिछले 3 क्वेश्चंस का आंसर स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड दिया क्योंकि वो स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड थे। इसमें आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि जो उसने डैमेज किया है, अगर आप बोलते हो कि भाई ये तूने डैमेज किया, अभी ये तेरे को देखना है इसका क्या करना है, मेरे को तो इसके पैसे दे दे, तो इट इज एज गुड एज यू हैव सोल्ड दैट आइटम टू दैट पर्सन, करेक्ट?
ओके।
So that is where beta GST is very interesting. We have to be able to apply the provisions minutely. Problem क्या होता है, हम उसको हमेशा जनरली देखते हैं। हम एक मान के चलते कि भाई पेनल्टी इज ऑलवेज आउटसाइड जीएसटी, पर पहली बात क्या, आपने पेनल्टी के लिए पैसा लिया है या आपने गुड्स के लिए पैसा लिया है? अगर आप बोल रहे हो मैंने एज ए उसको पनिशमेंट देने के लिए पैसा लिया है, देन नो जीएसटी, करेक्ट? जहां आप उससे
सर
बोलोगे भाई अभी ये गुड्स
सर सर उस चीज को डिपार्टमेंट के सामने प्रूफ कैसे करेंगे, अगर वो क्वेश्चन बोलेगा कि तुमने इस पे टैक्स दो, इस पे टैक्स दो।
बेटा अभी अगर मैं अभी ये सब डिस्कस करने लगूंगा तो बेटा अपना आगे टॉपिक रह जाएगा। सी इट इज ऑल थ्रू डॉक्यूमेंट्स, आपको वो प्रूव करना है कि भाई ये गुड्स मैंने उसको दिए नहीं, गुड्स मेरे पास ही रखे, मेरे गुड्स का सिर्फ उसने इस तरीके से वापस नहीं करना चाहिए, इसलिए मैंने उसको पनिशमेंट के तौर पे लिया है। सी डिपार्टमेंट मानेगा नहीं मानेगा, दैट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग। आपको जो भी टैक्सेशन लॉ में आपका जो स्टैंड है, जैसे अभी हमने डिस्कस किया कि पेनल्टी होगा तो ये, और गुड्स दे दिए तो ये आपको थ्रू डॉक्यूमेंट्स एस्टेब्लिश करना है। वो डिपार्टमेंट नहीं मानेगा, दैट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग बेटा, दैट हैपेंस इन ऑल केसेस। आज जीएसटी में क्या, हर पुराने टैक्स लॉ में भी यही होता था, मैं बोलूंगा सर मैंने सेल नहीं किया, मैंने दान किया, बोलेगा क्या प्रूफ है आपने दान किया, एग्जाम्पल,
हम्म।
करेक्ट ना? तो बेटा दैट इज ऑलवेज गोइंग टू बी अ फाइट बिटवीन यू एंड डिपार्टमेंट। डिपार्टमेंट कोई हर चीज पहले बार में मानता नहीं है। दिस इज
ओके
फाइन।
सर। फाइन
यस।
सर।
या okay students, so let me take you to a very important and a very interesting chapter in GST, that is exemption. Now when we talk about exemption, what exactly is exemption? So exemption means where something is covered in your law, something is taxable in your law, something is chargeable to tax in your law. Now I'm talking about law means any taxation law for the time being, not only GST, but for the time being they do not want to collect tax on it. So they are saying that you are falling within my charging section. However, when the liability has to be calculated, I do not want the tax on it. तो जब आपके गुड्स या सर्विस को मैं कवर कर रहा हूं मेरे लॉ में एज टैक्सेबल, बट मुझे फिलहाल उसका टैक्स नहीं चाहिए, तो देर इज दिस कॉन्सेप्ट कॉल्ड एज, कि लॉ बोलेगा कि ठीक है आई एम एग्जम्प्टिंग दीज गुड्स और सर्विस फ्रॉम टैक्स। सो व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट, सो एग्जम्प्ट सप्लाई is also firstly should be a supply. So एग्जाम सप्लाई में सबसे पहले वो सप्लाई होना चाहिए। एंड फिर आता है मेन पॉइंट, इन एनी ऑफ दीज थ्री सिचुएशंस वी विल कॉल इट एज एग्जाम्प्ट वन, जिसका रेट ऑफ ड्यूटी जीरो यानी नील दिया है, या जिसका रेट ऑफ ड्यूटी कुछ तो दिया है 5%, 12%, 18% समथिंग, बट उसे थ्रू नोटिफिकेशन फुल्ली एग्जम्प्ट माना है। एंड इंटरेस्टिंगली, जो सप्लाई जीएसटी में कवर्ड नहीं है, जो जीएसटी के बाहर है मगर वो सप्लाई है, दैट इज ऑल्सो टू बी ट्रीटेड एज एग्जम्प्ट. So three things are treated as exempt supply by GST law. One, which is taxable at nil rate. Two, which is taxable at some rate, but the notification which we are going to study today, let us call it as the exemption notification, has exempted it wholly. This is very important. See, in present tax law of GST, we are only having whole exemptions, but in earlier tax laws, we already also had part exemptions. Now, maybe in future, you may get part exemptions in GST also. So part exemptions, if there are in future, that will not be called as exempt supply, because over there you will be paying some GST. What they want to cover in exempt supply is only those transactions which are completely not leviable to tax, or where no tax is payable. So one, why no tax is payable? Because it is zero rate. Two, because it is fully exempt. Three, because it is not taxable at all in the GST, like your petroleum products, your alcoholic liquor, your ENA. All these things are to be treated as exempt supplies. Now, Rate of tax is nil. This you will get to know when you study the rate schedule, which is out of our syllabus. Non-taxable supplies we have already covered in the charge wala section, where we studied that alcoholic liquor, ENA, and 5 petroleum products are kept outside GST. Now, today and in the further coming sessions, what we are going to discuss is this part. So in our exempt supply definition, three things are treated as exempt, out of which this you will get to know when you study the entire rate schedule. This you already know through the charging section. This we are going to study. Now, how this is done? How do the government, or I'll say the parliament, gives exemption that is covered in section 11 when you are talking about CGST, SGST Act, and that is covered in section 6 when you are talking about IGST Act. We are going to cover both these things today. So let me come to section 11 and let me tell you section 6 of IGST is a replica of section 11 of CGST. So remember what we are studying now is 11 of CGST and SGST Acts. Now, again, I'll come back and inform you that we are not going to study this in this chapter. We are not going to study this in this chapter. This chapter only covers this part, that is those supplies which are wholly exempt, how they are wholly exempt. For that, you have to study section 11. Now, section 11 does what? It is saying to grant exemption wholly the power which parliament is having, because see, the lawmaking power is always with the parliament. The parliament has delegated the power to the government. Now, student, in every chapter, whenever we are studying, I'm explaining you that particular chapter provisions plus something about law. So here I would like to talk to you about a very important concept in law that is called as delegated legislation. Now, students, please understand firstly what is this concept in law. Understand one point, that whenever we talk about law or act, we discuss in the very first chapter who has the power to make a law in India. It is the parliament. At the center level, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. At the state level, the state legislative assembly, state legislative council. Now, only parliament, both at the center level, state level, has the power to make a law, to pass an act. However, now see, all this power is given by the constitution. However, the constitution has also realized one thing, that everything cannot be done by parliament always. Why? Recent example, what we saw in past 3 weeks, where the monsoon session was going on. I'm sure you all would have studied about it, heard about it, that hardly out of the entire monsoon session, hardly there was working for few hours only the parliament actually worked, because the remaining entire time of parliament was lost because of the rift between the political parties. Now, importantly, students, anyways, the parliament is not in operation 365 days. It is operating in sessions. Right now, we had the monsoon session. Then we will be having our winter session somewhere in November, December, and we will be having our budget session somewhere in February. Now, we work in sessions means what? Only during these sessions, all the members of parliament, both from the ruling party and the opposition party, are supposed to come and sit in the parliament. Like right now also, state parliament sessions are going on. Now, only during this period, the parties and the elected MPs, MLAs are sitting in the parliament to discuss on various bills, to pass or not to pass certain bills. So presently, in last 3 weeks, we had the monsoon session going on. Now the parliament is on break. Break means now the MPs, MLAs will go back to their hometowns and do whatever they want to do. Again, they will come. Let us say if I'm talking about center. So all the MPs, MLAs, they are from entire India. You have representatives in Lok Sabha from entire India. You have representatives in Rajya Sabha from entire India. So for these 3 weeks, when the monsoon session was going on, they were all present in Delhi. They were all attending the parliament daily. Now you can say they are on vacation. Somebody asked me in chat, sir, what is a session? So I'm explaining that. So it is like how we used to go to school and college. We had school and college for 10 months, and 2 months was our summer vacation. Same thing here, it is ulta. Here they are working for at a time 1 month, and remaining period it is vacation for them. Vacation means the parliament is not working. They have to go back to their respective places and do the work there. But they need not come and sit in the parliament and pass all the bills. So out of the whole year, the parliament work in few sessions. 3 is what is happening presently. At times, there may be extra sessions if required. Now, Constitution already realized this, that Parliament is not going to work 365 days. So all actions that are to be taken, which is given in the law, need not be possible because the Parliament is not in working mode all 365 days. So that is why what they have done is the Constitution has already provided that the act, which is the main part of any law, can delegate its powers to a lower part in a law. Like main part in the law is the act. The lower part in the law is the rules, is the notifications, is the circulars. So when we talk about any law, the law is made up of the main act, the rules, the notifications, the circulars, but passing of the act is only with the parliament. Passing of the rules, notification, circulars is then delegated. To whom it is delegated? Rules, notifications are delegated to the government. Now, the difference I am sure you all know. Parliament is made up of all the elected members, and government is only the ruling party members who are holding different portfolios like finance, agriculture, defense, education, etc. So the government, which includes the ruling party MPs who are holding the various ministries and all the employees below them, the IAS and all those people, that is what is the government. So they are given the power to make rules, pass notifications. Circulars are delegated even further. Boards will be passing the circulars. Who are the boards? For income tax, it is CBDT. For GST, it is CBIC. Now, this is what is called as delegated legislation. So the law, which is not made by the act, but which is delegated to be made through rules, notifications, that part of the law, which is made through rules, notification, circular, is called as a delegated legislation. And then that is given to government or to the boards to take care of those things. Now, exemption is not given in the act. This is interesting. You will not find any single name in the act which is exempt, because through section 11 of CGST SGST Act and through section 6 of the IGST Act, they have delegated this entire power to give exemption to the government, and how the government has to make notifications for this. So for something, the government is delegated and they have to pass rules. But for exemption, this section 11 and section 6 says government has to do this by passing notification. So this is firstly what is important. Now contrast this with income tax law. Interestingly, I'm sure you all have studied the income tax law. Whether old or new makes no difference, both are same. Only the section numbers and the arrangement has changed. Now, interestingly, students, in income tax law, the exemptions is given in the act itself, because over there, the parliament has not delegated it to the government. So you will find in the old Income Tax Act 1961, the exemption, entire exemption list, the what incomes of who will be exempt is given under section 10. But under GST law, and this was common in excise also, service tax also, earlier VAT also, that is, you can say under indirect tax law, the exemption list is not given in the act, it is delegated and it is given by way of notification. So see, you should also have a cross understanding. I hope this is clear. Now, I've always said students that whenever you are studying law, especially taxation law, try to get the feel of it. And what I mean by getting the feel of it, not only knowing what the provision says, trying to understand why. So now when I've just explained to you that under the income tax law, which is a direct tax, the exemption is given in the act itself, whereas under all indirect tax laws, the old one also, where VAT, excise, service tax, or the new one also, GST, the exemption is given through notification. That is, it is delegated to the government to make the list of exemptions. The question is why? What could be the reason why in income tax exemption is in the act and why in indirect tax exemption is through notification? See, the power changes. If I am saying it is in the act, the entire parliament, including opposition and everyone together, will decide exemption. When I say I have delegated it to the government to decide it by passing a notification, then only the government, that is the ruling party, and that too who is heading that department under which that law comes, like in taxation law comes under the finance ministry, they are the ones who are going to take the decision, nobody else. Question is why? Can anybody tell me why this part is delegated in case of indirect tax but not in case of income tax?
Sir, one reason would be because IDT is also depicting the state-wise laws also of the GST laws. So that might be also one reason because of this separation between DT
Okay,
and ID. That is my
no,
understanding.
no problem. Good logic.
Yeah.
Anything else? Your
सर
logic is
एक्चुअली
correct.
सर
Huh,
एक्चुअली एग्जाम्पशन में यहाँ पे पब्लिक, यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है नेसेसरी इन द पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट तो
correct,
टू डू।
correct.
तो वो इंटायर पब्लिक को बेनिफिट देना चाहती है गवर्नमेंट। अगर जो डायरेक्ट टैक्स में है वो तो प्रोग्रेसिव बेसिस पे है, तो उसमें
कौन से
फर्क नहीं
बेसिस पे?
पड़ता है।
कौन से बेसिस पे है
प्रोग्रेसिव बेसिस
इनकम
मतलब
टैक्स में?
अगर आपका इनकम, आपका इनकम ज्यादा तो टैक्स भी ज्यादा होगा। बट इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स में वैसा नहीं है। चाहे मैं मतलब कि गुड्स बाय करूं या कोई करोड़पति गुड्स बाय करे, सेम टैक्स ही देना है,
नहीं
सेम
नहीं, सो
टैक्स सेम
इससे ये
प्रोसीजर।
डिफरेंस क्यों आया कि इनकम टैक्स में एग्जम्पशन पार्लियामेंट डिसाइड कर रहा है और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स में गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड कर रही? व्हाई दिस डिस्टिंक्शन? बिकॉज ऑफ दिस पॉइंट ऑफ प्रोग्रेसिव।
क्यों? क्योंकि इनकम टैक्स जो है एंट्री नंबर 82 में सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के पास राइट्स है, और ये कंकरेंट लिस्ट में इसमें दोनों दोनों मतलब सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट दोनों मिलकर रूल बना सकता है। तो डिपेंड ऑन स्टेट्स, दे आर गिविंग द एग्जम्पशन एंड बेनिफिशियल देयर पब्लिक्स।
हाँ, सो आई
इट मे
थिंक
बी लॉजिक।
कंक्लूडिंग पॉइंट यू आर आई थिंक सेइंग द सेम थिंग विच राधा सेड ना, कि बिकॉज इधर सेंटर और स्टेट में दोनों है और स्टेट को के हिसाब से एग्जाम्पशन देना, दिस इज व्हाट यू आर सेइंग।
राइट, बट इसमें जो है कि पब्लिक को, पब्लिक का इंटरेस्ट, अगर कोई चीज एसेंशियल है तो वो गवर्नमेंट एग्जाम कर देगी, लेकिन उसमें क्या नाम बोलते हैं, डायरेक्ट टैक्स में ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है।
ओके,
अगर
ठीक है,
पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट है हैविंग एंड नॉट डजंट मैटर।
ठीक है, ठीक है। Just one correction I would make in whatever you said. You said this is in concurrent list. GST is not in concurrent list. GST is not in concurrent list, beta. You're talking
बट हमें
about
तो वही
Schedule
पढ़ना
7. You are talking about Schedule 7. We have three lists. List 1 center, list 2 state, and list 3
है।
concurrent. Correct?
राइट सर।
So you are saying GST is in concurrent list. That is list 3 of Schedule 7 of Constitution.
राइट सर।
No, beta. GST is outside Schedule 7 of Constitution. When you study GST law has been brought in by introducing a special, sorry, not section, a special article itself, which
101।
is
256.
And Schedule 7 entirely is coming through Article 246. So make a note of this, because what you said, beta, is what is understanding of more than 50% of people across India. I'm talking about not general public, I'm talking about professionals. Unfortunately, they also have this misunderstanding. So there is no problem if you thought so, but good you raise this point so that I can clarify to everyone. Just a minute. Yes, sorry. So beta Guru, I was saying this. So keep this in mind, everyone, that many people, even today, after 9 years of GST, are having this misconception. And see, I always say there is no problem in being wrong. In fact, I am happy that you all are discussing things upfront without keeping any hesitation, because I've read somewhere, it is a famous thought that when you ask a question, you appear to be fool for one time. But if you don't ask that question, you will remain fool for the lifelong. So there is no hesitation in asking question, and never you should feel kini how I can ask such a basic question, because many times those basics may be incorrect not only with you, it may be incorrect with many people. So that is very okay. So I'm very happy, Beta, you have mentioned this point, because somehow this gets missed out by many students, in fact, professionals, and in fact, many are carrying misconception about this. So let me clarify this to everyone again. GST could have been brought in through Article 246, and then it would have to be classified in Schedule 7, maybe in List 1, 2, both, or as Gurum was saying, in List 3. But the lawmakers intentfully did not do that. They have purposefully bypassed the entire Schedule 7, and to do that, they have brought a new article, complete new article, exclusively for GST, that is Article 246A. So through Article 246A, both center and state are having joint powers, but we do not call it as concurrent. That is, it is not falling in Schedule 7, List 3 of the Constitution. Fine. Okay. Now, why exemption is put in indirect taxes, or given the power in indirect taxes to the government, students? Because as one, you all rightly said, it is of general public interest. So it has to be decided by respective states also. And in GST, since state portion is covered, we have to involve them. That is one reason. Second important reason which I feel is, please understand one major difference between income tax law and GST law. Income tax has to be computed once a year. So even if I keep the power with parliament, because the original all powers are with parliament only, because everything will come through act. Here also, through act, it is going to government. It cannot directly go to government because constitution has given entire power for making the entire taxation law to one person, that is parliament. So firstly, the entire power is with parliament only. But in case of indirect tax, the parliament, through its own power making authority, has passed on this to the government. But this is not done in income tax, because over there also, first power is with parliament, but they have used their power themselves by putting it in the act through section 10 of the old income tax act. Why? The reason which I feel is, income tax has to be computed once for the whole year. So the parliament has opportunity to make the amendment in the law whenever they want, because everybody will be computing income tax, and that too in the next financial year. So what I'm earning now, I have to make the final payment in the next financial year. So the parliament has time throughout the year. If they want to make any change, they can themselves make a change. But look at any indirect tax, be it excise, VAT, service tax of the earlier era, or today's GST, and even the common tax customs, which was earlier also and today also. What is very important feature of all indirect tax law is, it is happening day to day. It is happening every moment. Right now also, I am making a supply to you. Now, since here, supply is happening every moment. Students, is there a echo? Because I am hearing my own voice again.
Yes, sir, there is a minor echo in your voice.
I don't know why suddenly this echo has started. Now it is gone. I think somebody had put on their mic. Okay. So I was saying, please note this point. Then in case of indirect tax law, it has to be decided every moment. It is not that I'm making supply today and it will be decided next year how much tax to be paid. It has to be decided today. Point number one. That is, every moment you have to decide the indirect tax. Second, in case of indirect tax, another important differentiating feature is that here, in 90% of the transactions which are under forward charge, even though the tax is payable by the supplier, but the tax is collected from the recipient. Now, keeping in mind both these points, I have to take a decision every moment of the amount of tax, rate of tax, and also to decide whether it is taxable or exempt. If this is delegated to the parliament, then there is a possibility that the parliament, which is only going to sit in sessions, any change required in exemption may take minimum 3 to 4 months. And for those 3 to 4 months, the old tax law will continue until and unless the parliament meets and decides. Plus, interestingly, it is not only the central parliament, it is the state parliament as well. Now, passing the same thing by the states, all the states, may take further time because their parliament may be again working on different dates. This may delay your exemption, and the benefit, what I think Gurram was pointing out, that it is for general public, may be missed out. So general public may be impacted and this may get delayed. Hence, it has been delegated to the government because government is operating 365 days. And if any exemption is to be given, they can immediately take that particular call. Yes, Narinder, you had raised your hand. You can unmute yourself, Narinder.
Sir. Sir, my first doubt is related with the delegated legislation, sir. Yeah, is it a rule and then first, sorry, sir, law by the parliament only, then the rule notification by the government or anything else, sir?
It is always first the act. Now that is why you
First
are
act, sir.
reading this. See what they have done. See, first, because the power is with the parliament only, always, as per constitution, entire law of let us say taxation or whatever law you are studying, that entire law has to be made by the parliament only. So you are correct. Always, firstly, the power is with parliament, that is with the act. Now, what the act has done through section 11 and section 6, it has delegated it, it has passed on the power to government. And only because it has passed on, that is why only government can do it. Otherwise, the act itself would have been required to do it.
Sir, it means the exemption is already by law.
Yes, it
That's
will
why
only be
government
by
will
law.
think about
It can be only by law. It cannot be by rules directly.
right, sir. Right, sir. Thank you, sir. So nice
Yeah,
of you, sir.
my pleasure. So, so now students, once you have understood this concept of taxation law and rather every law, that there is something called as delegated legislation. Now let us read the delegation, how they have done. So what does the act say? See, when you are reading a section, it is what the act is saying. It is saying that now, in case of GST, the decision of giving exemption is passed on to the government. How? So what the act is saying, he let the government decide wherever the government is satisfied that it is necessary for public interest, that the government will decide to exempt any tax. So what they have done through section 11, they have passed on the power to government. He let government decide what they wish to exempt. Obviously, one thing very important in GST is, students, wherever you read anything in GST, this particular phrase will always be there. What? On the recommendation of council. Because as was pointed out by Gurram, that center and state both are together jointly levying the tax. So both together only can decide the exemption. And this is the only place where both are sitting together and deciding. So anything in the GST law, anything, not only exemption, anything you'll read, you'll always find this phrase common, that as per recommendation of council, because both have to jointly decide. And how they are deciding jointly, there is only one place where both center and state means all state representatives are sitting together at one place. That is what the council is. Now, what the government is given the power, they are given the power to give exemption. How? Generally. So there are two types of exemption. One is general exemption and one is special exemption. Now, what is the difference between general and special exemption? So let me first take you to subsection 2, which again gives the power to the government to give exemption. But now this exemption is a special exemption. What is special and what is general? General means I will give names of goods or services which will be exempt, and anybody who is supplying those goods and services fitting in my conditions can get the exemption. That is general. Whereas special is, I will identify some specific entities and I will say this entity will get the exemption. Now this becomes a very specific exemption. So instead of special, let me call it as specific. So this is general, where any entity can take the exemption, whoever satisfies my condition. Whereas when I say only this person, so and so entity will get the exemption, that is a specific exemption. Now I'm sure you all will understand ki why to give exemption to one entity, this will be unfair, but answer is no. Again, they are saying government will have to satisfy this, that is, it is in public interest, that exemption has to be given to a specific entity. And again, another thing that the government has to satisfy is that they have to prove that this is because of some exceptional circumstances. Now, till now, there is no such use of this particular power, because as you know, it is very difficult to say ki when it will be in public interest and when it is of exceptional nature that I should give exemption only to one person. So that is just a power given over here, but not yet utilized. So what is being utilized is only subsection 1, which says that the government has power to grant exemption generally. Generally means anybody can come and take the exemption. Obviously, the exemption may be absolute or it may come with conditions. Now, what is the difference between absolute and condition? So we call this as absolute exemption. We call this as conditional exemption. What is the difference? Absolute will be like healthcare, education, agriculture. These are all absolute. Absolute means you are not given a choice whether you want to take the exemption or not. We have given this exemption in the absolute form, means it is like a compulsion. So once you are dealing in education, once you are dealing in healthcare, once you are dealing in uh, third thing what I had said, I just missed. So once you're dealing with any of these things where the government has given the exemption on absolute basis, so you can read absolute as compulsory. Whereas where the government itself wants that you decide whether you want the exemption or not, they will make the exemption conditional. So let us read it as optional. So I will substitute these words. Absolute, I will substitute with the word compulsory. Conditional, I'll substitute with the word optional. So wherever the government feel that, okay, this exemption, you decide whether you want the exemption or not, they will make the exemption conditional. So then you have to decide as a businessman whether you want to go for this exemption or not. But wherever the government wants, no, this exemption has to be given. You cannot decide whether you want to give this exemption or not. They will make the exemption absolute, that is, it will be compulsory. Again, today, majority of exemptions are absolute, very few are conditional. Now, what they can exempt, they
Sir,
can,
sir,
yes, madam.
sir, please any conditional example, sir?
Sorry.
Example of any conditional, sir.
See,
Optional any example.
when we will read the exemption notification, at that time I'll explain you. In fact, you yourself will get to know what is a conditional and what is optional, right?
Right, right, sir. Thank you,
So,
sir.
so when we'll go to the each of the items, we will ourselves come to know whether it is absolute or conditional. Now, what the government is given the power, they are given the power to give exemption. Exemption to what? Goods or services of some specified description. Now, either the government can give exemption for entire GST or part of the GST. Again, as on date, GST law has not used this. They are only using the whole exemption for the time being. But earlier, excise laws, VAT laws, and service tax laws had this concept of part exemption also. So when the part exemption concept was there, what was happening? Out of 12%, they had said that 6% is exempt, you pay only 6. So that was the concept of part. However, under GST, we are not using this concept. So wherever we are exempting till now, we have exempted whole. And the last thing is this exemption will come effect from some date, and the date will be specified in the notification itself. So two types of exemption, general, specific. Again, as I said, as on date, no specific exemption is being given. All exemptions which are given are general exemptions. And majority of them are absolute, few are conditional. Which is absolute, which is conditional, when we read, you will come to know. And they may give whole exemption or part exemption. Again, as on date, there is no part exemption. So whatever exemption is, that is whole. Now comes the subsection 3. What does subsection 3 says? Now see, many times what happens, I have given an exemption. That is, I have made the notification in which I have put some exemption. After I have passed the notification, after some time, I start getting questions from the business, the industry, the trade, that they are confused about what will be the scope or applicability of a particular exemption. They are confused. And for that, they want some clarification. Now, when the government is confused and they want some clarification, when the public is confused and they want some clarification, so the government is given the second power. One is the power to give exemption, and the second power is also to give explanation so that they can clarify the doubts of the public. So I'll give you a very interesting example. So we all know nurseries. Nurseries means where you can go and buy certain plant saplings. So nurseries, what they do, in small plastic bags or in small pots, they grow certain plants. And then when you want to do some plantation in your backyard or in your gallery or on your terrace, so you go to the nurseries and whatever plants you want, you purchase those saplings from there, and then you plant them in your backyard or in a pot in your balcony or on your terrace. Now, this particular case, Now I'm giving example of the income tax era, but just to explain you this point, that in income tax we all know there is exemption for income from agriculture. But when this nursery business grew to a very large extent, a question arose that whether income earned by these nurseries from sale of plants, which they are giving in small pot or small plastic bags, whether that will also be considered as agriculture. Now, see, this is what is the clarification people are asking. Now, in income tax law, that came firstly by a judgment, and later on they included it in the definition of agriculture itself, that it will be treated as agriculture. But many times, everything cannot be done by judgment, and everything cannot be done by amending the law. So what they have done over here is they have given power to the government again, that if you are getting any queries asking for clarification on whether the exemption is applicable to you or not, what is covered, what is not covered in the exemption, in such cases, the government can add an explanation, where they will add the explanation in the original notification itself or in the original order itself. And through this explanation, they can clarify the scope of that exemption. So where people had asked a query whether this will be covered or not, they can clarify it by adding an explanation. Now, what is the question? Let us say this exemption notification was introduced on 1st July 17, because that was the day when GST law started. And the government had made the list of all these supplies are exempt. And there is one item which is agriculture. Now, agriculture simply said that, okay, when you're doing agriculture, we will exempt it. But now what is the confusion? Whether nurseries are covered in agriculture or not. So after all the confusion and doubts, what the government did, in the entry relating to agriculture, it added an explanation saying that yes, nurseries are also included. Now the question is, they have given this explanation in the entry of agriculture saying that yes, we hereby clarify that nurseries are included. But the question is, this explanation was added on 10th of November 2018. Now, see, all this is example. Actually, nothing of this sort has happened here. I'm just giving you an example. Now, the question comes, from which date we will assume that this explanation is added. Now, actual date of adding the explanation is this. But since this exemption is clarifying something which is part of the original exemption entry, whether this explanation will be treated as from the original date or from the current date. So for this, subsection 3 says, if this explanation is added within 1 year from the date of issuing the notification, then such explanation will be deemed to have effect from the first day the notification was issued. So if this explanation was added up to 30th June 2018, that is within 1 year of original notification, we would have assumed that this explanation is effective from the original date of notification. But since this is added after 1 year, this will have effect from this date onwards. That is, it will be treated as prospective. So keep this part in mind, student. This is very important for your exams, that if any explanation is added, if it is added within 1 year, it will have a retrospective effect from original date. But if it is added after 1 year, it will have a prospective effect from the date it is added. Correct? And then the last part, which is given as a clarification in the section itself, which I already explained above, that wherever government is giving you exemption, which is absolute, it is compulsory. There is no option given to you to whether go for the exemption or not. You are compulsorily not required to collect tax. So in short, keep this point also in mind. So these are the two important points that will be required by you in the exams. First is the date of applicability of the explanation added. And second is where exemption is absolute, not conditional. you have to keep in mind it is compulsory, you are not given the choice. And wherever they will make it conditional, you have the choice. Now, for goods exemption, let me tell you students, you will have to read the rate schedule of goods. And through the rate schedule, you will come to know which goods are exempt. Now, rate schedules are not part of our syllabus. So indirectly, we are not going to study or not going to come to know what is exactly the goods exemption list, because that is part of the rate schedule. But for the time being, just for your information, I have listed out an important point that in case of goods, the general rule is whenever you are buying something which is unbranded or which is not pre-packed, and they are all your day-to-day items like food grains, milk, atta, maida, besan, eggs, curd, lassi, fresh vegetables. If these are unbranded and they are not pre-packed, then they are exempted. This is just a general point I would like to say. Baki, entire detailed exemption list of goods, students, you will come to know only when you read the rate schedule, but it is not part of our syllabus. But this you can just keep as a general information in your mind that when you are talking about day-to-day items, the generic rule is if these day-to-day items which you are consuming as a common man and it is your day-to-day necessity, they will be exempt on these grounds that if it is unbranded and unpacked, they will be exempt. If it is you are buying the same atta maida, which is a pre-packed item carrying brand of some established company, it will be taxable. Same thing is with milk, same thing is with eggs, curd, etc. So when you go and buy Amul dahi, it will be leviable to GST. But you directly go to a dairy person who is selling the dahi by putting it in front of you in some plastic bag and giving it to you, it is not pre-packed, there is no brand, it will be exempt. This is the generic rule for exemption of goods. Now, let us come to the list which is applicable to your exams. That is the exemption for service. Now, the original exemption notification for service in case of CGST is notification number 12/2017, and in case of IGST it is notification number 9/2017. So for CGST it is 12 notification number, and for IGST it is notification number 9. Now remember one thing, all these notifications were introduced at the time of introduction of GST law, but every year the council keeps on changing the list by adding or deleting some items. I'm sure you all remember last year in September, the government announced a very major change in GST exemption, and many goods and some services were made exempt or their rates were lowered. I'm sure you all remember that. It was done just before the Diwali and Navratra season, and it was made applicable from the date of Navratra last year, that is from 22nd of September 2026. So all these things are decided by the council time and again, maybe again this year. Now, whenever the council meets, which is expected to happen somewhere in August, or if not August, somewhere in September, we may come across some major changes in the GST law. But for the time being, what list we are going to study is the list updated as on the date. Now, in this list, now please remember, this list is given by the government by way of notification, and this list covers 100 items of exemption. What I have done is that I have categorized or summarized the list into some common factors. Like, I'm not going to take you in the sequence of the notification entry 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, 1, 13, 60, 80, I have clubbed together. Why? Because they are dealing with something which is common. Because in exams also, you will be required to apply the exemption for one sector. So I've tried to make the entire notification sector wise. So wherever I found common exemption relating to a sector, I've put it together. So that is how I have made these categories. So my first category is services which are related to charitable and religious activities. Now, students, two important points I want you all to keep in mind. These 2 points are: point number one, what we are studying is only exemption for services. Now you'll say, sir, we also know you have already mentioned that goods exemption is in schedule, and now what we are studying is notification, so it is service. But still, I'm reiterating this because when we will proceed further, you will find that in some cases you will read that as if we are talking about goods, but keep in mind we are not talking about goods. Like how Guru had asked a question about passenger transport, goods transport service, and he was linking it with the exemption of goods. So be clear here in all the entries, what we are going to study now onwards, it is only the services that we are talking about, not the goods. Because for goods exemption, that is whether those commodities, those goods are exempt or not, you have to read the goods rate schedule, which is not part of our syllabus. First clarification. Second clarification, students, is you may draw a parallel of this exemption with income tax, because you will find similar things exempt under income tax also, like this charitable point. Then later on, when we'll go to the agriculture point, you'll find you have similar exemption over there. But here again, I would request that please don't be generic. Generic means what is exempt under income tax need not completely be exempt over here, and vice versa. So you may keep the income tax point at the back of your mind, but also keep in mind one thing, that there are differences between what is exempted under income tax and what is exempted under GST. Now, with these two, you can say pointers, let me start with the first category of exemption. Now, the first category of exemption, students, which we are going to start with is the charitable and religious activities. Now, I myself am linking it to income tax, that you have studied this in the income tax in the old act in section 11, 12, 13 of the Income Tax Act 1961, where they have also covered exemption for charitable and religious activities. But what is the difference is, over there, the definition of charitable and religious activities and the definition of same over here is very different. Interestingly, one thing is common. What is common? So if you read the first exemption entry of our GST notification, you will find that we are making one thing which is common with income tax, that the entities who will get the exemption are the same who are registered under these sections of the Income Tax Act. So we want one thing common, that in income tax, if you recall the exemption given under section 11, 12, 13 of the old Income Tax Act, over there, they had asked you to take a registration. In fact, this is the section of registration. Originally, it was 12. Later on, it was amended to 12AA and AD. What is important is that whenever an entity is registered under the Income Tax Act as a charitable and religious activity, that entity only will be getting exemption under GST. So now this part is common between income tax and GST, that the entity over there and over here are same. But what is different is the definition of charitable. Over there, you have definition of charitable purpose under section 2 bracket 14 of the old Income Tax Act. Correct? Here, the definition of charitable is different. It is given in this exemption notification itself. So this is what is the difference. So one thing is common, that the same entity who are registered under the old income tax law as charitable and religious under these sections are the one whom we are covering here. But what we are exempting may be different. Now, what we are exempting? Services which are given by these registered entities, let me call them as registered charitable entities, but which service? Only the service which falls in my definition of charitable. Now, what is my definition of charitable? This is my definition of charitable. So the meaning of charitable activities is what is different between income tax and GST. What is my definition? First is these trusts should be doing what? Activities which are relating to public health. Now, this is a very open-ended term, public health. So what exactly they should be doing? First, care counseling, or second, public awareness. Now, what they are doing in care counseling? They should be doing care counseling of those people who are terminally ill. Now, when do you use the word terminal? Terminal, terminus, these words are used for end point. Now, when we say terminally ill, it means seriously ill, end point of their life. And these persons are very critical. Now, what these trusts are doing, they are doing care counseling. Please remember, here we are not covering treatment of these persons because that is covered in another entry. Which entry? Entry of healthcare activities. Here, what these trusts are doing, they are only taking care of these critically ill patients, or patients, or persons rather, not patients now, persons who have severe physical or mental disability. Now, I'm sure you all will know the practical examples of this. So we have many trusts who take care of people who are handicapped. We have trusts taking care of them, or who are mentally retarded. Those trusts are covered here for exemption. Second, trusts who are taking care of persons who are infected with HIV/AIDS. Again, we all know that there are some specific trusts. Now, please remember, there is no treatment required for these persons. But since these persons require some care, some regular day-to-day medication, so there are specific trusts who are doing that. Third, there are trusts who are working for persons who are addicted. Now, if I have to give you a word, we call these as Nasha Mukti Kendra. So these are trusts who are working So who are these persons? Who are addicted. Addicted to what? Drugs, alcohol. So we have these Nasha Mukti Kendras. So see, students, try not to only read these terms because they may sound very technical, very scientific, or difficult. But see the practical. When you take practical examples, you will be easily remembering them. So we have those type of organizations, trust, who are working for mentally retarded people. I'm sure you all would be knowing this around you, who are working for people who are having AIDS, or people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol, which, as I use the word, Nasha Mukti Kendra. Second is those trusts who are not taking care, but who are doing public awareness for preventing what? They are making public awareness of preventive health, family planning, and even prevention of HIV infection. Now, who are these trusts? Again, if I give you practical example, see, these are the trusts, or we call them as NGOs, who go to these all Jhopadpatti areas, and they tell people about the importance of cleanliness so that they do not fall ill. So they go to these places which are generally very filthy or dirty, and they go over there and they educate people about cleanliness, using clean water, keeping their surroundings clean. Plus, as you all know, India is having this, you can say, as a liability also and as an asset also, that is a huge population. So it is again very important to make people aware of family planning measures so that unnecessarily they may not have multiple children, which may again put load on their individual family also and on the entire country's resources also. So we have NGOs working who are going again to these people and educating them about the importance of family planning and the problem of high population. And then again, we have NGOs who go to people and inform them about the uh, problems of AIDS and how it can be prevented. So see, you will have practical examples of all these types of NGOs. We normally call them as NGOs. So when you talk about these NGOs, the activities which are done by them are the first category of charitable. Second is, this is the most common one. Now see, we have many trusts. Yes, Narinder. Narinder, I have unmuted you. Go ahead. Narinder, you raised your hand. I've unmuted you. Not able to hear anything from your side, Bida.
Sir, sir, I am audible, sir.
Now you
Hello.
are audible, Bida. Tell me.
Sir, sir, my doubt is regarded with the GST applicability या exemption on these institutions who are running this a person affected with HIV like that. कि
Hmm.
whether these institutions are charging some money
Very
from
good
these
question.
people.
Very
Sir,
good question, Narinder. So
sir.
please understand one thing, everybody. It is a very good point, Narinder. See, when we are talking about charitable, a misconception, a very big misconception is that if these are charitable, there is no question of getting any fees or amount. And hence, there should be no question of exemption required either in the income tax law, because if you're not charging anything, there is no income. Similarly, there can be no question of GST law, because if you're not charging anything, there is no question of GST. So let me first clarify this point. See, where these charitable trusts are running all these activities completely free. Now you'll say, sir, how can they do it free? Because they are getting donations and grants from some persons. See, firstly, when a person is giving you donation, is there a GST on donation? Answer is no, because there is no supply which is done by these organizations to the person. Second leg is using the donation amount, they go to some small villages, town places, or backward areas, and they do all these activities free. Now, when they are doing these activities free, that is where they are actually giving this supply, there is no money that they are receiving. So, again, there is a GST? No. So, this exemption entry is not talking about those cases where the charitable trusts are actually doing these activities completely free. Then it is talking about whom? It is talking exactly about what you are saying, those cases where these things are done for charge. Now, again, I'll give you a very common example which you all have heard about, Nasha Mukti Kendra. Practical example, I'm sure many of you all would have watched the movie Sanju.
Sir,
In that movie, it was shown that Sanjay Dutt, on whose life that movie is based, had been taken from US or UK. I think US, he was taken to US, and over there, he was put in a center which was helping people get out of the addiction. Correct? But that was not free. All these
sir,
organizations, either they are completely free, and many places they are doing this on a charge. We are over here talking about only those organizations who are doing it for a charge. Because only when there is a charge, there is a question of GST. So good point, Beda. So if anybody was having that confusion, I am sure that
sir,
would be clear.
sir.
Bolo.
Thank you.
Your voice is lost, Beda.
No, sir, my doubt has been cleared by you, sir. So nice of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Beda. Now,
My
students,
doubt, sir. Thank you, sir.
yeah, I've heard that, Beda. Thank you. Now coming to the second charitable purpose or activity, advancement of religion, spirituality, yoga. Again, I'll take a very simple example. Patanjali or Ramdev Baba came to limelight because of this. And let me tell you, today also, wherever you'll find any of the yoga programs going on, majority of those are free for common public. They are all done on the basis of donations received from elite class. Now, again, we are not talking about those yoga courses which are run free. But at the same time, we have many charitable organizations who are registered as charitable organizations, but who are providing yoga courses for some fee. It may be nominal, it may be heavy, that makes no difference. Similarly, there are many organizations which are running centers where you can go and do meditation, or they teach you some course, and again they are charging for that course. Many organizations, like we have the Isha Foundation, we have the Art of Living Foundation. When you join them for a particular course where they are doing one of these things, either advancement of religion or spirituality or yoga, or all combined, their courses are done for some fee, for some charge. That is where this entry comes into picture, that when they are charging you for that course, for teaching you any of these things, that is what is given exemption. Third charitable activity is where there are some educational programs run or skill development program runs for any of these persons. Now again, I'll give you example. We have an association called as NAB, National Association for the Blind. And NAB, it is again a charitable organization registered as a trust under those sections of the Income Tax Act. And what they are doing, they are running educational programs and skill development programs for people who are physically or mentally affected. Over there, they are physically affected because they are blind. Similarly, you would have heard of many such organizations which are working for betterment of those children who are abandoned, orphaned, or homeless. So we know so many NGOs, plus people who are mentally abused or who are traumatized. Like many times, whenever anything like this 9/11 attack happens, so people get traumatized because of that type of terrorist attack, or let us say there is a huge calamity. So many times people get traumatized. So they need counseling for getting out of it. And again, you have organizations who are doing that. Then you have organizations who are providing education and skill training by going into the prison cells and running some workshops over there. And then you may have organizations which are providing these things to senior citizens. Now, again, I will repeat, wherever they are doing it free, we are not talking about them, because anyways, that is outside GST law. There will be no tax on that in the first place. But where they are charging for any of these workshops, let me call them as workshops because they are programs, educational or skill. So when they are charging for their workshop, here they are given exemption here. Yes, Narendra. Narendra, I have unmuted
Am I
you.
audible, sir?
Now you are audible.
Sir, I unmuted you. Sir,
Now you are audible.
sir, one more doubt is regarded with this advancement of education program to prisoners. So then who are paying to the institution on behalf of the prisoners, sir?
I'll tell you. See, many times it is the family of the prisoners. But there is a lot of noise at the background of.
Correct, sir. Understood, sir. But वो प्रिजनर के घर वाले आके पेमेंट करते हैं या सरकार पेमेंट करती है, थोड़ा लिटिल बिट कभी सुना नहीं मैंने।
तो बेटा मैं यही तो बोल रहा हूँ, जरूरी नहीं ना आप यहाँ जो पढ़ रहे हो आपने सब देखा होगा लाइफ में. हाउ मच लाइफ यू हैव सीन बेटा, हाउ मच बिजनेस यू हैव सीन, टेल मी. आपने नहीं देखा मतलब नहीं हो रहा, ऐसा नहीं है ना. करेक्ट ना नरेंद्र.
You are right, sir. हाँ, बिल्कुल सर, सर
बेटा डू वन थिंग ना, मैंने लास्ट लेक्चर में भी किसी के ऐसे क्वेरी को बोला था कि व्हाई डोंट यू गो एंड एक्सप्लोर इट फर्स्ट. You have used a very correct statement that you have not heard it. I like this statement
राइट
of yours that you are admitting you have not heard it, but that does not mean that is not happening, na? Correct. Again, I'll give you a reference of a
राइट
movie.
सर, राइट सर.
See, many times we may not have seen everything in our life, but you find many things in movies. Like how I gave you example of Sanju movie. Now I'll give you example of a movie of Abhishek Bachchan. I am forgetting the name, where he want. I think Dasvi, the movie or web series, whatever it is. It is Dasvi, right? Similarly, I'll give you example of
राइट
one
सर,
more
राइट.
movie. That is again a web series of a very reputed, a very famous web series on I think Sony Live. Uh, Rani Maharani something, which is on the based on this Bihar politics. They have made a movie. I think Maharani only is the name, where that particular lady who was the CM was later on put in prison on the charges of killing her own husband. And if you remember, if you have seen that, you'll find that in that movie, there was this reference that she completed her graduation while she was in the prison. So two examples I've given you. One is of Dasvi and one is of this Maharani web series. Now in both, they have shown that the prisoner is taking education. Now, obviously somebody would be coming there to teach, na? And the person who is coming, if that person is any type of trust NGO, they are charging it because they are devoting a specific time for that person or maybe a group of persons. So this is not very uncommon thing, beta, right?
करेक्ट सर, अभी मेरे को याद आ गया सर, महारानी मूवी है सीन सर, बिल्कुल क्लियर सर. थैंक यू सर.
Yes, beta. And next, what is covered in charitable is preservation of environment. Now again, nowadays it is preserving rivers. We have seen many NGOs working on that preserve water, preserve rivers. Plus, we also have NGOs who are for working for climate change, who are working for deforestation, who are working for preservation of tigers, which comes under wildlife. So all these, you have specific organizations working for them. Again, wherever there is a charge for whatever activities they are running, that is what is covered over here, and exemption is given. Where it is free, again I'll repeat, there is no need of exemption because it is outside GST anyways. Now, we come to the second entry. This is on somewhat on the religious side. So what it says, service by a person, which service conduct of a religious ceremony. Now here what they are covering is, in all our cultures, to whatever religion you belong, in all our cultures, we have different types of pujas, havan, and for every aspect like birth of a child, death of a person, marriage, for all these different events of life, we have specific cultural activities, some ceremonies, and these are generally conducted by the Pandit, the Maulavis, father, that is the respected persons of that religion. Now, whenever they are conducting any of these things, like any religious ceremony at the time of birth of a child or death of a person, we pay them some fees. We call it as dakshina. So let us say now this Maharudra Puja, many people are conducting at their house. How they are doing? They are inviting some Panditji, getting that puja done through Panditji, and at the end of the puja, we are paying them some fees, which is we call as dakshina. That is what is covered in point A. So services by a person, and what that person is doing, the person is doing conduct of some religious ceremony. Now, so whatever is the amount charged by that Panditji, that Guruji, that reputed Maulvi, or your father of a church. So what they are doing, if that comes in religious ceremony. Now, what are religious ceremony? It means your various life cycle rituals, various types of pujas. An important point, when they will be called as religious ceremony, when these are done in terms of any religious text. So when we conduct any of these pujas or ceremonies, why we are doing? Because it is written in our religious text that you should do it. And it may involve occasions like birth, marriage, death, etc. So for everything, our religious text has given us a ritual to be done, and also it has authorized some person to do it, whom, as I named, we call them as Maulavi Sahab or Father or Pandit Ji. So our religious text, to whatever belief you belong to, are having these type of ceremonies. So when we get these ceremonies or rituals done through the authorized persons, the fees that we pay to them is what is covered in exemption in this entry. Then comes 13B. Now, what does 13B says? Now, you are a religious place. Again, you are being run by an entity who is registered as charitable or religious trust under the same section of Income Tax Act. Now, what I'm referring to is mandir, gurudwaras, or churches, or our masjids. All these are religious places. And again, if you all know, these are all registered as charitable or religious trust under these under these sections of the earlier Income Tax Act, or they are registered under these sections of the earlier Income Tax Act. Now, what are these all sections dealing with? They are dealing with these religious places, etc. Now, what is happening? You will find this very common. Many times the premises of this religious place, which may be a mandir, gurudwara, masjid, or church, is very huge. So one part of it is the mandir or the gurudwara or the main place of worship, but the remaining part is being constructed either into small rooms which are given on rent to travelers, or many times they have shops around these religious places which are again given on rent to people who then sell flowers, agarbattis, and all those things. Or there are huge halls in or around these places where people come for doing their religious ceremonies like marriage or the childbirth ceremonies, and all these places are given on rent. Now the renting is the activity which is covered over here. Now what is important? What you are giving on rent is some part of the religious place. The religious place is run by an entity which is registered under these sections of the earlier Income Tax Act. If these conditions are satisfied, then the room rent which you are charging will be exempt. But here there is a limit. The charges will be exempt if your room rent is below 1,000. I repeat, if the room rent is below 1,000, that is up to 999 maximum per day. Similarly, if you are giving that hall or Kalyana Mandapam for conducting any type of religious ceremonies, then the per day rent should be less than rupees 10,000. So it should be up to 9,999 per day. Then it will be exempt. And if you are renting your shops, then the rent should be less than rupees 10,000 per month, because generally shops are given per month. These places, rooms and halls are given on per day basis. Shops are given on per month basis. Now, only when your rent is below these limits, there will be exemption. The moment your rent is exactly 1,000 or more, it will be taxable. Fine? Yes, Radha.
Yes, sir. So you were saying the specific charges, the specific word is used 1,000 or more, 10,000 or more. Sir, it's very confusing. Can you give a clarity
Why
on it?
confusing? You are not reading from here. Nothing contained will apply. So they have put
Yes.
negative. So where it is 1,000 or more, then exemption will not apply. So I have put it positively that where it is
Okay.
below 1,000, exemption will apply.
Okay. Sir, another thing, here in the GST Act, it is not updated because 1023C is no longer applicable in a specific trust now because it has been merged into the Income Tax Act.
Correct. So they will update it, na beta. See, from this year only the new income tax law has come into force. Correct.
Yes.
So when they will update it very soon. No worries. But
Okay.
still remember this. This still has relevance. You know why?
Why?
Because
Mm.
those entities who have already done all these things in past, today their assessment is going on. Are you getting my point?
Yes, yes.
So for them, this old sections will only apply. Na? See, today the GST officers are coming to your premises to check which period's tax. They are coming to check past period's tax. So this is still applicable.
Yes, I got it.
What maximum they will be doing is very soon they will be adding the new sections here. Correct?
Correct, correct.
Next entry, students, relating to this same category is there are some specified organizations, these are government organizations, who are in charge of sending you to various religious pilgrimages. Now, what are these various religious pilgrimages and what are these organizations? So, two organizations are covered here. One is the KMVN, that is Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam, where people are going to China. Means actually we are going to a religious place, but it is falling in the side of China. So where the government involvement is there. And second is the Hajj committee, where people are going to Makkah, Medina. So whenever you have to visit these two places, which is falling in some another country, you cannot go directly. You require some government agency body to be part of this particular thing. So in that particular case, the charges which are levied on you, and I'm sure you all would be knowing, it is not free. They charge you an amount, and on that basis, you go over there to these places. So the charges levied by these organizations are what is put as exemption. Correct? And then comes the next entry, which is dealing with service by way of training or coaching. Now here there are two parts. The second part is dealing with the present category, but since both parts are under the same entry, I have covered it here collectively. So what are the two parts which are covered here in exemption? So first part is recreational activities relating to art or culture, and these are done by individuals. Now this is interesting. So you have joined some coaching and a person, an individual is giving you the coaching, but the coaching is in relation to recreational. So firstly, what is recreational? See, when you are doing regular studies and all, it comes in academics. And when you are doing extracurricular, like you go for dance classes, you go for tabla classes, you go for guitar classes, these are come in recreation. Now, important point is only when these it may not be covered over here. But if you go for a santur, vadan class or a harmonium class, it may be covered over here. Similarly, when you are going for a dance class, which is relating to one of the art forms, so it may be kuchipudi, it may be bharatnatyam, it will be covered. But you are going to this for a Western dance form, Bollywood, Hollywood, etc., that dance class will not be covered over here. So basically, the extracurricular classes that we join are covered over here, provided they should be relating to culture. Yes, Narendra.
Sir, sir, one doubt is there whether the entry number is mandatory in the exam or without entry number we
See,
can answer
in
the
last lecture, if you
question.
remember, last lecture at the conclusion, Madam has said that you need to know the contents. That is the first important point. You may not remember the complete section number. So same rule applies over here. You should know the main content. Even if you are not able to recall the entry number, that is fine. But still, I will say try to learn with entry numbers, that will have a better impression in the exam, though it is not carrying any specific marks.
Right,
Fine.
sir. So nice. Thank you, sir.
Now,
Sir,
next entry, which is relating to our category of charitable, is that where again any entity which is registered under these sections of the old Income Tax Act, it is providing training or coaching of what? Sports. Now, again, I'm sure you all would be knowing um, that whenever uh, you'll find these things generally around the vacations, that you have the cricket coaching camps, you have various types of, we call them as camps because they are relating to various sports. So cricket is the most common one, but we have football, we have cricket. Now, if they are done by individuals, that will be taxable because this particular entry requires that this coaching should be done by a registered trust. So only when it is done by a registered trust, such type of sports related coaching academies will be exempt. When these academies are run by private organizations or by individuals, it will not be exempt. I hope this is clear. Fine. Great. So with this, we complete this category. Now, students, let us take a break, and after break, we'll continue with the other categories. Fine. Now, after the first category, let us proceed to our second category. A very important category, that is agriculture. Now, students, here I would like to clarify one thing. Same point which I mentioned at the start. Difference between exemption for goods and services. Important. Here, when we are talking about agriculture, I'm not talking about agricultural goods, because for them, the exemption is covered in the rate schedule relating to respective goods, which, as I mentioned at the start, we are not covering. What we are covering is exemption relating to agricultural services. Now, what are agricultural services which are covered here in exemption? That is what we will try to understand. First, services of loading, unloading, packing, storage. See, transport word is not used here, but it is also exempt, but that you will study in the transport related service exemption. Here, what they are covering is the other services, but for what? For rice. So what are the services? Loading, unloading, packaging, storing, warehousing. Second, only warehousing for minor forest produce. Now see, what are minor forest produce? So first is for what is forest produce? So what you get from forest? Simple. That is forest produce. Now within that you have two categories, minor and major. What is minor? What is major? So where you get the wood, you cut the trees and you get the wood, that is a major forest produce. Minor is you get the leaves, you get some seeds, you get some small food items, fruits, etc. from forest. Those are minor produce. So warehousing of minor forest produce is what is covered over here. Then again comes storage warehousing. Now of what? Earlier it was only of rice. Now here it covers cereals, pulses, fruits, vegetables. Correct? Then besides this, you have intermediate production process, job work. What is exempt? But job work of what? Relating to cultivation of plants, rearing of live forms of animals except horses, etc. This whole part is the definition of agricultural produce, which we are going to see again. So whenever you are carrying out any intermediate product on the basis of job work for any agricultural produce, because this part is the definition of agricultural produce that we'll see later. And then last is services by way of artificial insemination of livestock. Now, what is artificial insemination? So like how we have test tube babies in case of human beings. So even similarly for animals over there, there is no test tube baby, but there is artificially injecting these sperms in the livestock for their reproduction so that we can multiply their quantity. So that is what is artificial insemination. Now, these specific activities relating to agriculture. Now I have to read this whole list also 54, but I first covered the smaller ones. Now these relating to agriculture are exempt, but the question is what is agricultural produce? Now here now we are talking about goods, but this entry is not exempting the goods. Keep this in mind. I mentioned at the start, these are all exemption entries relating to services. Now what we are covering over here is services relating to agricultural produce. All the above services, whatever we have studied, and one more main entry which we are going to study. Now the question is, what is agricultural produce? Yes, Narinder. I cannot
Sir,
hear.
entry rearing of horse. Sir,
What?
sir,
Not
sir,
audible.
am I audible, sir? Is it except the rearing of horse? I can't understand, sir, except for rearing of horse. Sir, please elaborate, करें, sir.
So let me
Sir,
explain this. I'm going to cover that here. Allow
please
me that.
elaborate the meaning except the rearing of horses.
Okay. Now, what is agricultural produce? Two things are covered in agricultural produce, students. What are they? First is cultivation of plants. So whenever you cultivate plants, now this is generally traditionally what we also understand as agriculture. And interestingly, within income tax and GST, this is common because in income tax also we have agriculture income. Again, over there it is from cultivation of plants and land, etc. But here in GST, we have one more activity which is treated as agriculture, that is rearing of animals. So two type of things: cultivation of plants, rearing of animals. Now, whenever you get any produce by cultivating plants or by rearing animals, that produce, that output is agricultural produce. Now, what type of output you will get? So whenever you cultivate plants, now see, plant is a very wider word. It will cover small plants also, it will cover your fields also, and it will cover your entire forest also. So everything comes in plant, plus it will be the plants growing on land also and plants growing in water also. So that much is the expansive of this term plant. So whenever you are growing any type of plant, tree, etc., what you get from that is either food, or you get fiber, which is used for making clothes, or it may act as a fuel, or it may be raw material or any similar product for anything. Now let us understand one by one. So when I cultivate plant, what I will get? I will get all types of food grains. I will get flowers. I will get cotton and all these things which will be used for making my clothes. So that is what is they are covering. Plus, many times the residue of this plant will be also used for burning, like the woods and all. They will be used for burning, so they act as fuel. Second thing is when you rear animals. So rearing animals will give you what? Again, the same thing. You will get milk. In case of cows, you will also get cow dung, cow urine. Plus, the entire animal itself is a food item for many. And interestingly, animal skin, animal hair, they are again to be used as fiber. So a comprehensive definition of agricultural produce is done. Now here, interestingly, from all animals, they have excluded horses. In fact, here also in artificial insemination entry, they have excluded horses. Why? Horses are not animals. They are. But go back to income tax. Even in income tax, the activity of maintaining race horses, only horses. Why? Other animals are not used for horses. They are. People are rearing those animals. Like in many parts of India, we have the bullock race, we have the bull race, but we are excluding only horses. So see students, this is something you will find commonly flowing in income tax and GST law both, that rearing of horse is given a separate treatment than the other activities. On similar lines, rearing of all forms of animal is treated as part of agriculture, but not horses. Now, somebody will say, sir, why? Maybe the reason is, see, when we got freedom, at that time, many of these rajas were maintaining horses in large numbers. Reason was, one, horses served them as a medium of transportation for themselves or for goods. Two, horses were used in wars. Three, horses were also used as part of their military. So many places you will find the use of horse on a very large scale. Achha, interestingly, later on, you will find that there were many horse races on which people used to do betting. And in India, majorly it was horse race, which for which we had various race clubs across India. So it was overall, this is my understanding, felt by the lawmakers that horse is more used as an item of transport or a military item or as an item of status rather than it being used as agriculture item. In fact, in agriculture, nowhere horses are used. And also practically, at least I have not seen or heard that horses themselves are food items that people consume horse. I don't know. At least I have not heard. So because of these reasons, and after freedom, you'll find that other animals like elephants and all, which the Rajas were using, were not used on a very common scale, but horses were still used, and they were more held as a prestige point. That is why I believe both in income tax and in GST, rearing of horses, maintaining of horses has been excluded from the beneficial part, even in GST and even in income tax. This is my understanding. So, what is agricultural produce? So, whatever output you are getting from plants or from animals, which will be used either as food or fiber, as fuel or other raw material. Now, what is the most important part, students? This is the most important and critical part, which I think you should keep this in mind. That is that any item which you are getting from plants or animal forms will be treated as agriculture only up to the stage where you have not carried out any processing, or even if some processing is carried out, it is that processing which is done by cultivators or producers only to make it marketable for primary market, and which do not change the essential characteristics. Now, this is the most critical part which distinguishes agriculture from a non-agriculture item. Now, pay attention, students. Now, many times we believe, again, as common man, our understanding is what? Anything which is coming in raw form is agriculture. Like in our house, we bring many items which are in raw form. We bring wheat, rice, jowar, bajra. We bring all types of dals. We bring different types of cereals. And we also bring different types of fruits and vegetables. All these we bring raw. And yes, all of these are coming from farm. But interestingly, all of these do not fit in the definition of agricultural produce. Why? They are produced from cultivation of plants. Yes, all of these are from cultivation of plants, but still they are not all classified as agricultural produce because there is some processing done on them before they reach your house. And that processing is not the processing done by the cultivator or producer. It is done by some other person who is not the cultivator or producer. Like, interestingly, the rice which is coming to your house is no agricultural produce, though it may be in raw form, uncooked form. I agree. Why? Because when rice is growing in the fields, the rice has a covering which is called as husk. Importantly, a farmer who is growing that rice, when he removes the rice is covered in husk, and the farmer do not remove the husk. They sell the rice in the primary market. This is very important. Again, we will not know this until unless we go and see what is primary market. We have always gone to the secondary or the tertiary market. Tertiary market is the retailer. Go to the primary market. Primary market is the very first stage where the farmers bring their produce. In that, if anybody of you have any connection with agricultural background and especially of rice, you will find that rice, dal, both these are not sold by the farmer in that form in which they are coming to your house. They sell it in much earlier stage. Like as I said, in rice, they do not even remove the husk. The removing the husk is done by some other agency, an outside agency who is not a farmer or producer. Similarly, after removing the husk, generally the rice which is there inside the husk is slight yellowish brownish. Nowadays, in fact, many health experts are suggesting to eat brown rice. What is the rice? That is the rice which is having some brownish layer coating. Again, this rice after removal from husk is also not always coming to your house. It is again going for milling where this brownish layer is removed. Then the rice becomes the rice which comes to your house. In fact, in some cases, they do further polishing to make it more shiny, more white. That is anyways manufactured. But even if you're not doing any polishing or shining, even still, the rice which comes to your house is after two stages. One is removing the husk, one is doing milling and removing the upper layer, which is light brownish. And these things are never done by the cultivator. These things are not done for bringing the goods to the primary market. Hence, the rice that comes to our house, the dal that comes to our house, these are not fitting in the definition of agricultural produce. And that is why, interestingly, now I come and explain this with the backdrop of this. What was the need of making these entries only for rice? What was the need of making this entry for cereals and pulses when you have the same entry here? See, now the main part, you have the same entry here. But this is for what? Agricultural produce. Now, had rice been agricultural produce, the rice which is coming to your house, why will I repeat the same? Had the pulses and cereals and the fruits coming to your house already agricultural produce, why I will introduce this entry here separately? Because all these entries are covered here for all agricultural produce. Now, coming to fruits, many times the fruits which are coming to your house are coming after polishing, waxing, artificial ripening. They are in raw form, but all these processes have already been done. They are no more agricultural produce. Please understand this, students. See, again, this requires some practical exposure to the particular industry. So, when you look at this agriculture related products, you'll find that the farmer is selling in a more earlier stage form. Then what form it is coming to your house, and that is why we require these separate entries to exempt them, because they are not covered in this entry which is here, because this entry is only applicable when loading, unloading, packing, storage, etc. is done of agriculture produce. And the rice and many of the fruits which are coming to your house, the pulses which are coming to your house are not agriculture produce. I hope this is clear to everyone. Yes, students. Clear, understood? Any doubts with this? No doubts? Let us proceed then. Now, this entry number 54 is very crucial for your exams, because majority of the entries here are the ones which are commonly applicable to agricultural produce. So this is the main entry for agricultural produce related services. What is this? So services relating to cultivation of plants, rearing of live forms of animals except horses, for food, etc., etc. So all this is the definition of agriculture produce, we already know. So what they are saying, services relating to agricultural produce. Now what type of services? Services by way of doing the agricultural operations. So the entire agricultural process, right from sowing the seed till getting the output, everything is eligible for exemption. And they have clarified that this agriculture operation, including cultivation, harvesting, then threshing, plant protection, testing, all these are exempt. Next, for working on the farm, you require labor. Many times, you get these labor from manpower supply agencies. So where you are getting from manpower supply agency, the manpower supply agency service is otherwise taxable under GST. However, only to the extent of the supply of labor for farm, that is for agriculture operations, the manpower supply agency service will be exempt. Next, processes which are carried out at the farm. Now, on the farm, that is on the field itself, there are various small different processes being carried out. Nowadays, many times these services are outsourced. That is, the farmer himself is not doing it. He's getting it done from an outside agency who come to your farm and does these processes and charge you some amount. That is what is exempt. Next, renting or leasing. What? Agro machinery or the land? So firstly, you take the agriculture land itself on rent. The rent of agriculture land is exempt. Second, you take various type of machines like maybe tractors or various machines which are required for carrying out agriculture operations. The rent of that machine is exempt. Important. If you purchase the machine, GST is not exempt because that will become supply of goods. But if you take the same machine on rent, the GST on that renting is exempt. Then comes agriculture extension services, where various types of tests and researches are carried out for betterment of agriculture. Those services are agriculture extension. And finally, when you go to these primary markets, which I was mentioning earlier also, these markets are run by APMC, that is Agriculture Produce Market Committees. So whenever a farmer goes to these marketplaces, which is the primary market, they have to pay some fees to the marketing committee. Only then they allow them to sell the goods over there. Secondly, they may also require agents to help them sell their goods. So whatever commission they give to these agents, that is also covered in the exemption. So students, these are the common agriculture related services. 54 is common, remaining are specific. These services are all covered in the entry for exemption relating to agriculture. Now here, some important points that you should understand. So we discussed that where any processing is done by a person other than the farmer, that will make it non-agriculture. And the moment it is non-agriculture, all above services will become taxable. So just to clarify, again, we feel the tea that we bring to our house, including the tea leaves. Nowadays, again, there is a trend that you bring the tea leaves. You believe that it is raw, so it should be agriculture. Answer is no. Similarly, we bring coffee powder, or many times nowadays people bring the raw coffee beans. Now again, they feel coffee beans are the ones that we are buying in the raw form, so it should be agriculture produce. Answer is no, because the farmer is not selling the coffee beans in the form in which you are buying. Similarly, pulses, be husked. As I said, now the moment you remove the husk, they become no more agriculture. Why? Because the farmer never removes the husk. Jaggery, other spices which are processed. See, you may get raw spices, or many times the spices, they appear to be raw, but some stages like uh, drying them or giving them some artificial look is done. So that will be no more agriculture. Similarly, all dry fruits, because they are only after processing. Cashew nuts, again, we feel that the cashew that we eat daily is raw, so it is agriculture. No, because the form in which the farmer or the grower of the cashew nut sells and the form in which you buy are different. So all these are outside the definition of agriculture produce, and the entries that we have studied above of services will not apply. Another clarification is about milling of paddy into rice. Now, the milling activity, it is an intermediate activity, no doubt. The question is whether milling of paddy into rice will be falling in the exemption of above, because above exemption we will discuss, there is one entry that whenever you are doing any intermediate function, it will be exempt. But again, the condition is intermediate function should be of agriculture produce. And I've already mentioned that the rice, even though it appears to be raw, is not agriculture produce. And hence, the activity of milling, that is converting the paddy into rice, will not be eligible for the job work exemption, because rice is not an agriculture produce. So students, these are some important pointers relating to the agriculture related exemption entries. I hope this is clear to everyone. Radha, I have already explained what is agriculture extension. So nowadays there are many research being carried out so that you can better the production of the agriculture. it may be soil research, it may be the water research. So many farmers get these testing and research done for their soil, for their water, so that they come to know ki what exactly should I use in this soil or what should I mix with this water so that I will get a better produce, or my produce will be saved from different types of insects, etc. So all these type of research activities are called as agriculture extension services. Fine. Now students, moving further, the third sector,
हेलो
which, yes beta,
सर सर एक क्वेश्चन है मेरा
हाँ,
कि सपोज दैट जो मतलब कि फॉरेस्ट्री होता है वो कट करके अगर फार्मर कंपनी में आके सेल करता है एज फॉर मतलब फ्यूल पर्पज,
हम्म,
मतलब एक बॉयलर में लगता है लकड़ी वगैरह स्टीम जनरेशन करने के लिए,
हम्म,
तो वो तो एग्जेम्प्ट है। इन इन केस वो जो फार्मर है पहले वो लकड़ी कट करता है और आरा मशीन पे जाता है, आरा मशीन यू नो सर ना,
हम्म,
वेयर भी, हाँ आरा मशीन
आई
पे
नो।
गया, आरा मशीन में उसका यूजेबल प्रोडक्ट निकाल दिया गया, जो अनयूजेबल प्रोडक्ट था वो कंपनी को भेजा गया, तो इस केस में भी एग्जाम्प्ट रहेगा या टैक्सेबल रहेगा?
Again, you are talking about service exemption or goods exemption, beta.
गुड्स गुड्स।
So that's why I'm saying, beta, we have to read the specific goods related entry.
ओके ओके।
And frankly speaking, I have not studied this wood related industry, so I cannot comment whether what you are saying is exempt or not, beta. So for that, we'll
एक्चुअली
have to go to that specific industry, beta. I cannot comment on that without reading the entry,
हाँ
right?
एक्चुअली जिस इंडस्ट्री में काम करता हूँ उधर वो मतलब फार्मर भी लकड़ी लेकर के आते हैं जो एग्जाम्प्ट रहता है, लेकिन जो मिल के थ्रू आती है, लाइक पटरा हो गया है जो भी मतलब वहाँ आरा मशीन से निकलता है, उस पे हम लोग 5% टैक्स मतलब कि चार्ज करते हैं
So
परचेजेस
the
में।
difference is the definition of agriculture produce, na, beta?
राइट सर।
What farmer is bringing, as we just saw, ki whatever cultivator does is covered in agriculture. The moment it goes to any other person for doing
हाँ
any activity, like in your case, it goes to mill and you are now getting that wood from mill. So whatever
हाँ।
the mill has done is no more agriculture. Then it will make your product outside the agriculture definition.
ओके सर।
But still, I'm not commenting because I have not studied that industry. This I am just trying to give you the logic behind. And I always say, you try to understand the logic. Many entries or many provisions will be easy to understand. So the logic is the definition of agriculture produce, which we just discussed in detail.
एक्चुअली सर क्या होता है ना, कभी कोई ऐसा प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में क्वेश्चन आता है तो वी जस्ट गो ऑन द गूगल, जस्ट टाइप वेदर
Don't
जीएसटी इज एप्लीकेबल और
never
नॉट।
go to Google, Veda. Never go
हाँ
to Google because Google will not give you correct answer. That is why I'm
इसीलिए
telling you
पूछ रहा
go by the logic. So I've given you the logic of agriculture produce. You have the definition already. You go to the definition, you will get the answer.
था। राइट सर।
I'm sure you would have understood this, whatever difference you are telling me when it is exempt, when it is taxable. When you read the agriculture definition, you yourself will now understand ki why what farmer brings is exempt and what you are getting from mill is not exempt. Because the difference is one is agriculture produce, one is not.
यस सर।
Correct?
जी।
Now, students, coming to the third sector, which is education. Now, in education, the entry is having two components. Now, for the first time, we are going to see exemption on both sides. So, what I mean, till now, whatever entries we have studied above, like in case of charitable, like in case of agriculture, what we were talking about exemption was the output activity. Now, if you are an educational institution, what it means, I'll come to that. Then you have exemption on your output activities also, plus you have exemption on some of your input activities also. So for the first time, we will be seeing exemption on both sides. Prior to this, if you are a charitable institution, what you are getting on the inward side, that was not covered in exemption. Similarly, if you are into agriculture activities, your output service relating to agriculture was exempt, but whatever input you were buying, that was not eligible for exemption. Even when we'll go further to healthcare and other sectors, in majority of them, only the output side is made exempt. But for education, and for government. These are the two sectors, education and government. We will read exemption on both sides. But it is not necessary that everything on both sides will be exempt. This is what you will have to understand first. Now, when I come to your output side, all your output services are exempt. This is the best part. But when we will read the input side, you will find that there is a specific list of input side services which are exempt. So I will say selected. Now, what is important is this term. I'll come to the meaning of this term in a few minutes. But firstly, what is exempt is all output service. Now, how can I say that? They are saying services provided by. This is output, and then services provided to. It is input. Correct? So when service is provided to education institution, it means education institution is receiving the service. So we are talking of the input side. Where we are saying by the education institute, it means we are talking of the output service. Now, interestingly, here they have not given the name of any service. What it simply says, services provided by education institution to these three persons. So which service? All service. Please be clear, they are not using the word education service. They are only saying services provided by education institution to students, to faculty, to staff. All services provided are exempt. Now, this is what is the important aspect that you should keep in mind while understanding this entry, that all services which an education institution is giving to its students, faculty, or staff, all are exempt. Secondly, now this is double A, which means it was not there originally, it was added later on. In the second category, double A, what is exempt is only one specific service. What is that service? Service of conduct of entrance exam. Now, what is this? Now, you know, many of your educational institutions, before giving admission, they conduct their own entrance test. And whoever qualifies and whoever comes in ranking is only given admission in that institution. Now, interestingly, why this entry had to be specially introduced? Because in the first entry, what is exempt is all services. So definitely even exam services covered. But it was exempt only if you are already a student. But whereas entrance exam is joined by those persons who are not your students presently, if selected, they will become future students. But what you are charging them today, like for entrance exam, that is not covered in double A. Sorry, that is not covered in A. And that is why double A had to be introduced. So double A is introduced specifically, exclusively to cover the entrance exam related fees. So whatever is the entrance exam fee, or at times they call it as the form fee, which is charged to public at large. They are not yet your students. They may become your students. That is a different thing. But today, 1 lakh students are appearing and you are having only 200 seats, but you are charging the fee to 1 lakh people. They are not yet your students. So to cover them also in the exemption, they have introduced double A at a later stage when a lot of dispute had come relating to this. Now, what is very important in this whole entry number 66 is the meaning of educational institution. Because services given by them or services given to them are exempt. But who are they? That is what we need to understand. Now, please again practically check this. What and who are covered? One is preschools are covered and schools up to the higher secondary, that is 12th standard. So we have many preschools nowadays going on. That is even before the nursery standard, you have the preschool play groups, we call them. They are covered. Plus schools up to standard 12 are covered. So first, preschool to 12. Now generally in many places you have the school itself up to 12th standard. So let us call them as schools for simplicity. Then the second part covers colleges. Now, what does the second part covers? Where these educational institutions are providing service. What type of service? Education, which is part of a curriculum for getting a qualification. So we get the qualification like BCom, MCom, BBA, MBA. All these are qualifications. So when any organization is running a curriculum, and the end result of that curriculum is that after completing that curriculum, you will be obtaining a qualification. So I've used this term, which we normally call them as colleges. So first is all schools, second is colleges. But interestingly, in case of schools, schools having Indian syllabus or having foreign, both are covered, but colleges only having Indian syllabus is covered, not the foreign. I'll say, sir, what you mean by this? So I'm sure you all would be knowing that nowadays we have Indian syllabus. One is SSC, other is, sorry, not SSC. We call it as the state board. Then we have the CBSC. We have the ICSC. These are the three boards. All are Indian syllabus. Then you have some some course that is of London. We have that particular board also, where the school is providing you a qualification, or I'll say it is running a syllabus which is of the UK universities or UK board, which is something called as IGCE something, or in short IG board. These are the international boards. Now up to the school level, that is up to 12th, the schools, whether running Indian board syllabus or foreign board syllabus, both are eligible for exemption. But at college, only these boards are covered, not the foreign boards. Why? Because here they are saying when they are running a curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by law for the time being in force. So when they are saying this, they are meaning by this only Indian laws. So all our Indian syllabus running universities and colleges, their fees are exempt. But those colleges which are running the still IG board after 12, their fees are taxable. Now somebody asked me, what about ICAI? I'm sure you know better. You have already paid the fees. Yes, you have already paid the fees. First at foundation, now at inter, then at final. You've already paid the fees thrice. You know the answer for this. Is your curriculum not part of any qualification recognized by law in India? Answer is yes. Hence, ICAI very much falls in the definition of educational institution. And then when it is charging you the fees for running or for providing a curriculum for obtaining a qualification, it is very much covered in the exemption entry. Then comes approved vocational education. Now, what is vocational education? So I will call it as skill training. So see, both the above, these are academics. Then you also have those institutions, organizations which provide skill training. What are they? So see, you have the ITIs, ITCs, that is Industrial Training Institutes. Then you have something called as Modular Employable Skill Course run by this. These are all treated as your vocational courses. So firstly, understand the meaning of vocational. They are all providing you skill-based training. Like when you go to ITI, what you learn is various type of designated trades like plumbing, carpentering, electrician. Similarly, when you go to this NCVET, they provide you training relating to some or the other skill set. So understand this. So what is exempted here is this particular type of activity and their fees. So who all are covered in educational institutions? So it is, you can say, three categories. All schools, whether running Indian or foreign curriculums, colleges, but only covering Indian curriculum, and then skill-based trainings. Again, they are to be provided by approved institutions. So these three fit in the definition of educational institution. Now, we studied their output service. Output service is any service given to student, faculty, staff. Now, when I say all service or any service, what am I covering is, first, the fees of the school is anyways covered. But besides that, you are given accommodation. So the school is having its accommodation. It is providing food. It is providing many types of care. So many things are nowadays done by a school, and they charge everything to the students. Similarly, for faculties and staff, many times when you have these boarding schools located in hill stations, over there they are charging to their staff also for boarding, lodging, food, everything. So whatever the school, the college is charging to students may not be only for education, but for all these extra activities. That is also covered in the exemption. Now coming to inward service, that is a service which the schools are getting. One is transportation of students. Now see, they are providing this output facility to students, pick up and drop, for which they are charging the students. Now on the inward side, either they may have their own buses and drivers, but nowadays many schools do not prefer that because that is an additional headache. So what they do is they give contract to some existing person who is running buses. So they give contract to that person, and that contracted person is running the transportation facility. So now this is the inward service for the school. Second is, nowadays schools are providing food. So in all your private schools nowadays, they are providing lunch and they are charging for that. Plus in government schools, there is midday meals. Now on outward side, when they are charging to students, that is exempt in the above entry. But many times they are hiring caterer on the inward side, and the caterer is billing to the school, that is covered on the inward side. Security, cleaning, housekeeping. Nowadays, see, earlier times school were hiring their own staff for doing this. Now, like security, it is given to some security agency. And for housekeeping and all, you take all those persons from an outside agency, some manpower supply agency. So that inward service is exempt. Then services relating to admission, conduct of exams. So conduct of exams, many times the school colleges, they hire outside professors for setting the paper, checking the paper. They hire places for conducting their exams. All these services are covered. And then online education journals. So nowadays, many of the institutes, they provide these journals online. All these services are covered. Now, interestingly, please pay attention, students. On the outward side, whether you are a school, college, or skill training institute, whatever outward service you are giving to your students, to your staff, and even to your faculties, that is teachers, all are exempt. But on the inward side, we studied 5 services. All 5 are not exempt to all these 3 types of organizations. Now on the inward side, it is interesting to see. So first you have the school, second you have the college, and third you have the skill training institutes. So these are the 3 people covered in your educational institution definition. Now see, pay attention. All inward services are not exempt. For the schools, which inward service is exempt? Transportation, catering, security, housekeeping, and service relating to admission or conduct of exams. For colleges, what is covered on the inward side is only services relating to admission or conduct of exams and online journals. And for skill-based training, only one service on the inward side is exempt, that is admission or conduct of exam. So on the inward side, all the 5 services are not exempt for all the 3 categories. So out of 5, for school, 4 are covered in exemption. For college, 2 are covered. And for skill training institution, only 1 is covered. So students, please be very clear, be very specific as to what is exempt on the inward sides. So there are 5 services listed. Out of 5, schools are getting exemption for 4. Colleges are getting exemption for 2, and skill-based is getting exemption only for 1 on the inward side. On the outward side, all services given to students, faculty, and staff are exempt. So students, this is the end of the educational sector also. Kindly study them. I've given some clarification points below every of these entries. Kindly go through them. They will help you understand many small pointers, what I have covered in my explanation. There is circular number for many of these. Kindly study them so that you will get the in-depth understanding and knowledge. So with this, I complete my today's deliberation on the exemption related services. We will cover this topic in the next week also, where we will dealing with exemption for other sectors. Till then, please keep reading, keep revising on the earlier points so that you will be in a very good shape by the time we reach the end of our syllabus. So with these words, thank you students. Thank you very, very much.
हेलो।
Yes.
सर मैं ये जानना चाह रहा था कि जीएसटी अभी बहुत पुराना एक्ट हो गया है, 8 इयर्स हो गए हैं, इसमें केस लॉस नहीं आते क्या? केस लॉस?
बेटा केस लॉज में हुआ क्या है, अभी तक जीएसटी ट्राइब्यूनल नहीं फॉर्म हुई है। अब ट्राइब्यूनल के बाद केसेस जाते हैं हाई कोर्ट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, करेक्ट? तो जब तक ट्राइब्यूनल में ही केस का जजमेंट नहीं आएगा तब तक वो हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट कैसे जाएंगे?
क्योंकि डायरेक्ट टैक्स में केस लॉज हैं, उनको रीड करो तो थोड़ा बहुत और भी डेप्थ नॉलेज होता है, वैसे ही मैं पूछ रहा था इसको।
यस बेटा, सो अभी वो केस लॉज आने को टाइम है। यस, आज आपको जीएसटी से रिलेटेड हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के कुछ जजमेंट्स मिलेंगे, बट दे आर गोइंग टू द हाई कोर्ट सुप्रीम कोर्ट थ्रू द रेट रूट। सो वो जजमेंट्स हमने कवर किए हैं एज एंड व्हेन, क्योंकि वो बहुत लिमिटेड है अभी। देर आर नॉट मेनी जजमेंट्स बिकॉज आपका ट्राइब्यूनल वाला रूट अभी स्टार्ट हुआ है, अभी तो ट्राइब्यूनल के हियरिंग्स भी शुरू नहीं हुए। तो पहले कोई भी ऑर्डर ट्राइब्यूनल से पास हो गया और उसके खिलाफ जब हाई कोर्ट सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जाएगा, सो मे बी आफ्टर 2-3 और 4 years आफ्टर दैट यू विल स्टडी हाई कोर्ट सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट्स। आज जो कुछ हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ऑर्डर्स आए हैं, जिनको हम रिट ऑर्डर्स बोलते हैं, दैट वी विल बी कवरिंग in our deliberations. Like if you remember, in my first chapter, I had already covered 2 judgments. One of Govind sir and Ganga sir, which is the old judgment of Act law, and one judgment I have covered of GST law, which is relating to Kolkata Club. Right? Similarly, आगे जैसे बढ़ेंगे, जो relevant चीजें होंगी, that will be covered with that particular topic. But you are correct, क्योंकि अभी तक जीएसटी में हाई कोर्ट सुप्रीम कोर्ट में अभी तक केसेस नहीं गए हैं थ्रू द अपील रूट, सो अभी तक हमारे पास वो जजमेंट्स नहीं आए। दैट विल टेक मोर 4 years. फाइन,
ओके।
थैंक यू ऑल स्टूडेंट्स, थैंक यू वेरी मच, टेक केयर एंड कीप स्टडिंग। यस संकेत जी, गुड डे, थैंक यू टू यू।